Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the second Aussie Whisky Get Together here and Sydney Whisky Forum, our virtual replacement for the Sydney Whisky Fair here in 2021. My name is Scott Fitzsimons. I look after all the whisky and spirits things here at the Oak Barrel in Sydney, Australia, including the Sydney Whisky Fair. And last year it was nice and easy. I knew pretty early on that we weren't going to be able to do a physical event. This year's been a little bit different. I had everything planned and ready to go. Luckily, the only thing I didn't do was actually put tickets on sale, which prevents me from having to refund a lot of people. So I'm very, very happy about that. But we have pivoted, the world's most overused word, to do a series of virtual tastings. We did international whiskey last week. We are right into Australian whiskey tonight, and I have 8 distillers, blenders, producers, ambassadors from all over the country with me tonight to talk whiskey and have a little bit of fun and drink some excellent booze. We have sent out a number of packs around the country with all the whiskies we're going to try tonight. But if you didn't were lucky enough to get a pack, feel free to still pull up a chair, pour something you got on the back shelf and have a bit of a chat, because that's what this is all about, lifting spirits and having a bit of a chat. So I want to say a quick g'day to Justin Farmer. Is watching on the Facebook, as is Janice Hollingsworth from the Blackgate Distillery, who managed to avoid last night's shenanigans and just throw bombs from the chat. So I expect nothing the same tonight. But I'm going to go round the ground, so to speak, and introduce our people from tonight. So at least on my screen, it's probably the same on yours. Stuart McIntosh from the Chief Sun Distillery. G'day, mate. How are you?
Awesome, Scotty. Good to see you again, and everybody else.
Beauty. Christy Lark Booth from the Killara Distillery down in Tassie, in what looks like slightly warmer night than last night. What's the weather down in Tassie like?
I don't know. It was a balmy 0 degrees this morning, so, not much better than that.
Yeah. Do you have to sometimes check your thermometer's not working and then you realise you live in Tasmania?
Yeah, well, it's Tassie, so we get, summer one day and winter the next. We're kind of used to it down here.
Beautiful. Good whiskey making weather. Just below them, the Atwoods from Backwoods, Lee and Bree, which after my 6th whiskey, I will definitely start stumbling over that. Guys, how are you?
Yeah, we're good, Scotty.
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Good to see everyone.
Beauty. Nick Baxter from Archie Rose, sitting in warm, sunny Sydney by the looks of it. It's got the beach towels on the back there, which is a good vibe.
Yeah, I wish, mate. I wish. Hi, Scotty. Hi, everybody. Good to be here virtually. Done a few virtual events over the last 12 months or so. So looking forward to tasting some whiskies tonight.
Excellent. We'll make sure this one's unlike anything you've done virtually before. Making his fair debut, which would have been in the flesh, but unfortunately is a little bit virtual, but has probably the most impressive back bar out of our contestants tonight. Maybe Peter Bignell might beat us a little bit there. But Paul Shan from Tria Prima down in the do you count yourselves as Adelaide Hills?
Well, I'm actually based in Adelaide, but the distilleries, Adelaide Hills, Mount Barker, yeah.
Yeah, beauty. Well, mate, welcome and congratulations on making your fair/forum, whatever this is, debut.
Thank you.
We will be gentle, I promise. Peter Bignell, friend of the stream, friend of the fair, has been to most fairs in the, I don't know if I can count this, but it's like the 12-year history now, even though it hasn't happened for a couple of years. Peter, in the distillery there, mate, how are you?
Yep, no, very well, thank you. Yeah, a little bit rushed this evening, as I usually am, but yeah, we got here.
Excellent, mate. Now, looks. Every time we do something with you, mate, your setup gets better and you get clearer and clearer. So you'll be in high definition 4K next time we do this. Be excellent. Another debutante. Making the virtual appearance rather than being here in the flesh. Chantel from the Kinglake Distillery, not too far from the Yarra Valley, about 45 k's northeast of Melbourne. Mate, how you doing? And welcome to the Oak Barrel.
Yeah, good. Thank you, guys. I'm really looking forward to it, even though you always can be a little bit nervous on your first events. But no, should be a fun night. All
right. It's going to be good fun. And as we were saying in the green room beforehand, just follow Dean from Corowa's lead, and whatever he does, do the opposite. And I don't actually get to pick the order. I can move it around if I want, but it's just fantastic that Dean has gone straight into the middle of the Brady Bunch here, live from Corowa Distillery. Mate, how you doing?
Doing really good. Great to be here.
Excellent. Well, look, mate, tonight is just about trying to recreate a bit of that fair atmosphere, sharing some whiskies, having a little bit of fun. And what it's largely about is trying some stuff that is a little bit left of centre. So I'm going to post in the chat here, both across Facebook and YouTube and wherever else people are watching, the order for tonight. This is another one just like last night where it's a little bit of a tough thing to decipher because you can't just work by ABV. You can't necessarily work by flavour profiles. We've got some weird stuff in here and certainly a lot of wonderful stuff, but we might throw to Stewie from the Chief Son to start off with what is, if not the latest, one of the latest single cask releases, which I have not tried yet. So I'm very keen to get into. So, mate, quick update on how you've been and how everything's going.
Oh, hey, good, really good. It's actually not released yet. I was just looking at that. You got the pre-release bit of it, actually. No, we're good down here. We're entering our 207th day, I think it is, tomorrow. I've lost count, actually. So lockdowns, like it's Somerville, Mount Eliza, and that's about our life at the moment. And homeschooling, love the homeschooling. So we're good. We this year's been huge for us. The distillery's just growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and we have no space. So I was with Christy before saying she's running out of space and she's building. Well, we're so out of space, it's ridiculous. So production's big, lots of different things we're trialing. I saw last night you were talking about, all your Peated off, some big, heavy, rich stout. So lots and lots happening down there. So we'd like some time off during the lockdown. It'd be nice. But so no, we're good. We categorise all our whiskey. So I'll go back a bit. So we have about 28 or so big American oak barrels. Otherwise, everything else is all from Andrew Young over in the Barossa. So Andrew Wine Oak, they've always provided our barrels. So our whiskies aren't about the barrel so much because they're all French oak sherry. It's all about the recipe. So hence, we're trying to get, whilst we have unique things, the core range is all about, it's all about that big, rich, bold French oak sort of sherry whiskey. But yeah, we're playing with lots of stuff as well. So when we go through categorising, we often do say 10 or 12 barrels, and out of that, generally one or two stick their head up. And they're unique and different. And so this is one of our last single malts. We'll release that pretty soon. So we're just about barrel 102 is currently selling, 121. But if we go back a bit, we won a couple of World Whisky Awards with our single cask stuff.
Just a couple? Just picked up a couple on the way home one day?
Yeah, well, I know, they're easy. You just do them. So we won a couple of years in a row. We won, I think, barrel 1 and barrel 126, I think it was, won Australia's best single malt, single cask, no age statement. So we're pretty chuffed with that. So this is the uniqueness. So we pick, it's the same recipe for the 900 standard, but when they pop their head up and say, I'm amazing, we do something different with them. Either they go into our cask expression range where we get beer influence, or like this one. So 121 is, I love it. It's all, I think what we note, the ones we hand pick and we bottle as single cask, they're more gentle. They're big whiskies, but they're still like, so this whiskey, we get lots of, I guess, like delicate rose and sort of cedar rather than the big oak and sort of stewed stone fruit. So we get on the nose, this is different enough for it to be a different whiskey. And then hence we don't want, our brand's all about consistency and quality. These ones are good quality, but they're slightly a little bit more inconsistent than that core range. Now I have to apologise to Peter and to Nick because as I was setting up here, I poured the whiskies and I put your whiskies next to the laptop, and now they're about 50 degrees. So I've just pulled them over to try and cool them down a little bit. So they're going to be challenging when I get to them, I think.
I like that the gamesmanship's already starting and it hasn't even kicked off.
Geez, it's so hot. Just incredibly hot.
There might be coffee in the Archie Rose Blasphemy, but you don't actually need to drink it hot like coffee.
Yeah. It's I actually want to do it to Dean's because I reckon that maple syrup in there, I reckon that'd go off like a treat. I should do that. Pop it over here. No, I won't. So are we drinking whiskey? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, buddy. One thing, Stuart, that I
It's a bit colder here, Stuart. My whiskey's 10.9 degrees. I just tested it. That's your whiskey. Mine might be 50, yours
That's
is
been
10.
too cold. Just warm it up a bit, Peter.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Sorry, Scotty.
One of the fascinating things from the start from Chief Son, and I think it's a real great thing about Australian whiskey, but other new world producing countries, is that the conversation historically from Scotland has been about barrels and only about barrels, and then talking about different things over the past decade or so. But you talk exclusively about, or almost about recipe, and then they go into the same barrels. So have you found any challenges in getting that message across, I guess? But then also, what is the recipe that we're drinking now? What sort of malt makeup and what differs from other whiskies?
Yeah, we had Alex Bruce from Delphi and Arden American Distillery. He came and he was besotted. He loved the concept. So, because what we say to people is that we're a malt-driven distillery. So we have all the same barrels. So it's not about whether it's American, French, port, sherry, bourbon, whatever. It's about the different recipes. So this has the 900 standard recipe. It has a very highly kilned pale malt, and it has a Baird's in there. Our pure malt has some roasted malts, but we won't talk about those. And then our sweet peat has a different composition, and so does our heavily peated whiskey. So it's about the process and the recipe. Has it been hard? No, I think people get it. And it took me ages to work out, because people were always after that, what region do you represent kind of concept of, how do you reflect on Scotland? I think what I realised is that we're actually all, Australian signature is all about wine barrels. So some people obviously are their bourbons and stuff, but it's, so our difference in Australia, once you say it's a recipe, it's different, and it's a wine barrel, people go, okay, I see how different it is now. So that really works well when we're communicating, mate.
Yeah, great. I mean, this is, I can understand why this has been picked out as a single cask. It's sort of got all that oomph and that texture and that sort of roundedness that Chief Son has, but there's a bit more going on there. I definitely get that cedar thing that you were talking about. There's a few layers to this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I get lots of lollies in it too, but it's sort of, fruit lollies. It's sweet, but it's not too sweet when you drink it. It's on the nose, I find it's super sweet, but drinking wise, it's honey. It's the creamy oak comes through more. So it's part of the thing is you'll see all our notes, and then you'll see this one that just says really smooth. And as soon as we see smooth in there, people that kind of guides us down this path. So it's not a sharp. It's just really a oily, fatty whiskey. I get but it also changes the peat. So we go back 10 years ago, we were trialling barrel types and would then trialed small amounts of peat. So the peat and malt we use in this is not to give it smoke, it's to give it that really rich depth character. Like it's to lengthen the palate. You get it a little bit, but it's more toffees and caramels, I think. And so we get clarity in their single casks, but less consistent, as we said before.
Yeah, definitely. And just touching on the ABV here is 49.49.
Yep.
Is that that's presumably not natural cask strength, and is the 49 by design?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're always around. So we find the single casks either come out at 60 or we bring it around the 49%. We just find in the single cask that works better, whereas when we're vatting together and diluting to 45, that's a different beast altogether. So this one, it's just we find the best. So they always come out, and we always vary it very slightly, whether it's 49.49 or 49.3. Just not a lot in it, but it also helps people differentiate what the whiskey is. But no, natural cask strength for us, we're up into the 70% now for most of our casks. American oak not. American oak we're getting out at probably 66, 65. But all our French oak, especially the hundreds, although we've moved from hundreds, we're getting them out at 67 to 71%. So we suck a lot of water out of those barrels, and we lose a lot of volume, but it concentrates. So that's another issue. Another difference to the old countries. We get this, such concentration in our whiskies. Like you were talking last night about extractives, or Brian was. We get a lot of extractives out of the barrel over a 4 or 5 year period.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm going to bring up a comment here from Justin Farmer. Says exactly what I was going to say, Stuart. Don't get the wisp of smoke I usually associate with Chief Sun, which I think it's definitely a delicate and subtle. With Farmer is my sort of style. It takes after my personality. I look for in my whiskies, delicate and subtle as well.
Pete, smacking the head.
Yeah, for I know there's a few people in this panel here that have tried a few Chief Sun. Would you describe this as typical for you guys, or something a little bit different?
I just keep getting the nose from the glass from afar, like jelly crystals. When I keep getting that. I love that. Yeah,
I'm with you on the nose. Like it's got that rose petal kind of perfumey thing going on the nose. It's great.
Mm.
I love the depth that the peat gives it. It's very typical of Chief Suns. It's just got that really nice depth in there that you always come to know and expect from Chief Suns.
Yeah.
I mean, Chantel, you aren't far from Chief Sun in the grand scheme of things. What's your thoughts? Let's throw you under the bus here.
We've already come down, seen Stuart, seen his setup. And his whiskey. Yeah, it's great. We've already had a couple bottles. I think we're probably nearly finished one at the moment, so we'll be looking for more. But, it's a great drop.
No, thanks, guys. Yeah, it's the malt. That's what I get. I love the malt, like the journey of malt, and we do that. If people come in at the right time, they get the chew on a bit of malt. We go through the whiskey wash. We go through, not the low one, but we go through the new make and into the whiskies, and it's such a great journey. I know Stu Whitecross does it as well, and he has a palate right the way through because they do the maltings for us. So it's such a journey because you can just taste, and that's a really good thing about this whiskey, or almost all Australian whiskies. It's malt driven. They're big. They're lush. Absolutely. But it is different, like you said, Scotty. It's delicate, and that's a standard 45 is not kicking the head, but it's a much, more robust whiskey, I guess is a nice way to say. It's harder. Whereas this stuff, once we get into single casks, we did a barrel 72 just recently at 60%, and that's just actually it's a bit like Josh's. What's it called? He's 60%er. Can't remember. Got it over here somewhere. But
Governor's Reserve.
Something like that. Yeah, I think, yeah. And it's Christie's Cup. And that, it's got that massive amount of flavour to it, and that's, very cool. Not as viscous as ours, but still amazing whiskey. It's that the richness we can get out of barrels is so cool.
Talking about so cool that Stuart, my glass was very cold. I showed you the thermometer a while ago, so I just went there and got some hot water, warmed my glass up, poured yours in it, and just hits me in the face. Licorice.
Licorice, yeah.
Warm right up. I warmed it.
Yeah.
Well up. Yeah.
Yeah, we get that out of a lot of our whiskies, especially the cask strength. So the 60% ones, we get a lot of licorice out of them.
Yeah, as it's cooling a bit in the glass, that licorice has disappeared. But gee whiz, it just hit me. That's all I could smell, just fresh licorice, just when it first hit me.
Yeah, and the seed licorice.
Other things coming now, but wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, I heard Andrew was saying last night about David, about the not putting ice in kind of thing. That might have been anyway. But at 20 degrees, we always tell people it's 20 degrees. Like it's drinking it at the temperature it's made at. So however you cool or heat it to about 20, it gives it the best flavour out of it. We have cold whiskey here, so summer we put whiskey in the fridge because it's easier to warm up rather than cool down. Not so much ice, but absolutely, we always talk about 20 degrees. Try and get it to that temperature because it gives it the best character.
It must be difficult for the Tassie people.
Yeah, it's pretty warm here today. -4.5 this morning, but yeah, a beautiful sunny day. Yeah, it was quite warm. Well,
I thought Kinglake was cold.
See, and I was trying to throw everyone under the bus in terms of talking about Sydney at this warm strait, but Ollie Maruda, good friend of the Oak Barrel, who is tuning in, has just thrown me under the bus by admitting that, yes, it has been absolutely pissing down all day in Sydney, one of the most miserable days of the year. So, yeah, thank you, Ollie, for pointing that out to everyone. I appreciate that. But yeah. Look, Stewie, I think that's an excellent single cask, and what for me really stands out is it's an evolution of where you're going. I mean, we're talking about cask 121, so we're still very early doors in the history of Chief Son. In 10, 20 years, we'll be sitting down, talking about barrels like this with very lots of fondness in our hearts and that sort of thing. But this is again a different take on your recipes and your spirit, which I think is really, really special and really cool. And I think that's excellent. Even after, cask 121, it's not like everyone sat there and tried 121 Chief Sons. They might have tried, the early adopters might have tried 2 or 3, and already they're picking out differences and evolution. I think that's really exciting so early in the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you come down, we can sit in the quality control cupboard, if you like, and have a try of all the different barrels.
Yeah, beautiful. I look forward to doing that in 2034.
Yeah.
Look, Matt, and I thank you for that. We went for something a little bit bigger to kick off with, so you can sit back and drink for the rest of the night, Stewie. Your hard work is done.
I'll just put comments into everyone else's thing now, like, you buggers.
A couple of shout outs on the chat. Justin Farmer, very quickly for Stewie, you're doing another Imperial Porter Stout. That one punched very hard.
Oh, yeah, we have our cask expression range is always evolving. What have we got at the moment? We've got the Russian Imperial, the heavy, so the dark Russian, that's out. That's at 58%. But we're doing different breweries now. So we've got Hop Nation, the Kalashnikov, or Kalash. We've got Old Pumping Station Imperial Stout. We've got all sorts of things happening. A couple didn't go right. We had some things that I was so excited about and they turned pear-shaped. But generally, we find the beer finishings anywhere between sort of really 6 months and 2 years. Extra maturation is amazing for our spirit. So, yeah, lots of stuff coming out. Plus, don't forget the secret peat, which is just divine. Actually, I might send you a sample, Scotty. Because that's what we did was we created one.
I've drunk enough whiskey. Don't worry about it. You
don't like peat. You don't like peat. That's all right. Don't worry about it. We won't send you any. But we did one really. Yeah, we did one huge batch of peated malt, and it's basically the flip of this recipe. So what's peated is pale and pale's peated. And we then split that up into French oak and some second fill French oak. And I can't decide. I'm just like a little kid in a candy shop trying to work out which one I like more. So that's probably early next year sometime, I reckon.
Yeah, beauty. Well, keep your eyes on that. That is now permission for everyone in the comments section to just keep emailing and calling the Chief Son Distillery and really annoying them until they release it. So look forward to that. But we might move on. Thank you, Stewie, to whiskey number 2. I want to go with the Kinglake O'Grady stand. So we touched on it before, but Chantal, welcome to making your Oak Barrel / Whisky Fair debut. And I apologise, it's not in Australia Hall with 150 people, but we're going to have some friends. But so welcome, and I guess, Joe, you want to quickly talk about the Kinglake story so far and the O'Grady stand we're about to dive into.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. It's probably less intimidating doing it like this than in a big hall anyway, so maybe I prefer it live online.
Yeah.
To warm up anyway. So I guess Kinglake, we've had our product on sale for about 4 months now. We're a bit different to what Stuart says. We're going to keep the same recipe forever, and we'll use the barrels just because we hope in like 50 years time when people are still drinking Kinglake whiskey that they do a blind lineup and they can go, yep, that's Kinglake whiskey. So we get 3 of our malts from Voyager, and then we get 1 from the borders of Scotland, and that's our peated. So we've got a bit of a chocolate roast in there and Atlas and that, and then we've got a bit of a peat just because we think gives just a bit more depth to the whiskey, and we cut deep into our faints to really try and get that peat out into the barrel that we put in at barrel strength. Yeah, so I guess it's been exciting for us. It's nice actually, like the rest of the crew here, to start selling. It's like the next stage of the business. You spend so much time concentrating on building it, making it, right barrels, you know, getting everything right. So now we're at the next stage where it's the other challenge of just getting our brand out there and getting our whiskey drunk by as many people as possible.
Yeah, I'll just bring the Brady Bunch up so everyone can see the nodding heads that are going, yep, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's definitely the next step.
Yeah, so, and then I guess probably one of our biggest challenges was when we were setting up, we're actually off grid. So that made everything a bit tricky, but it also made us design a distillery that could, you know, produce a lot, because a lot of it was about being efficient. We didn't want to do 18-day spirit runs. For us, it might sound great, but I'm pretty sure in time to come that wear and tear. We want to build this business forever. So yeah, so we had to get a steam boiler to set up. So with our big still we've got a 2,500 litre still, which I'm probably same as you, Stuart, or you were 3,000?
No, we're 4.
Oh, 4. Okay, well, a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
I won't even ask Nick from Archie Road, because you guys probably got a massive one as well. And Dean.
These days, yeah.
That could have come across wrong, couldn't it? Massive one.
How big's yours, Dean?
It's so Dean.
Bigger than yours.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess the biggest problem setting up off grid was pumps, you know, when you do the mash, just trying to get it out of the mash tun, not pulling too hard. Everyone we called, oh yeah, just use this electric pump, and we're like, we can't use that. So we end up with a diaphragm pump with the generator, with the compressor. So you hear this clunk, 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 but it's actually, you get quite used to it after a while. And then,
so
yeah.
So just on that, Chantal, like that's really interesting, because there wouldn't be too many distilleries, even regional ones in Australia, that operate like that. Just very quickly for people who live in the city who've never seen a blade of grass, off grid means you're creating and generating everything yourself with the stuff you brought in.
Yeah, so we use solar for most of everything except for the boiler, for our steam boiler to do our pot still. We had to use steam, and we have to fire it by gas, basically. So that's our only thing we need to alter. We're obviously trying to approach to be carbon neutral. So our biggest thing was the gas we use. So hopefully there's new technology coming out that will allow us to then get rid of the gas in probably about 4 years' time. I mean, the Bignell might be onto it, but like hydrogen splitting is the next form. So yeah, basically we're right out in the bush. Exactly. Yeah, no pollution, just gum trees. We have snakes get stuck in our gutter in the front and freeze. We had a tiger snake right at the front door of we've got a little bar there, literally, and it could stick its little head out of the thing, and we're just like, oh, we'll leave it a couple of days. And then I've got kids, and we're just like, no, we can't do this. So we had to like take off part of the gutter and then get a stick to try and get it out, and then just throw it back to the bush. People were like, did you get rid of it? I was just like, of course not. There's probably about 10 snakes already. His mates are already behind him in the shed anyway. So yeah, and then we've got lots of parrots and kookaburras. The kookaburras are getting a bit nosy, as well as the king parrots. But no, it's great. We can do open fermentations with all our ferments. So we do quite long fermentations. So yeah, we just have them open, the shed's open. So anything, live yeast or anything want to jump in, they can. But yeah, so then I guess another nice when we're setting up, we've got a natural spring on our property. So we're at the top of the mountain stream, and that feeds, so we can use that water unfiltered, untouched, straight into our whiskey. We tested it, and yeah, it's pretty much spot on with all the minerals that we want. So we haven't added, and the water's really cold. So when we're doing our fermentations, we can also use that for our jackets, which for our fermentation jackets in summertime, which is a nice asset. We don't have to use glycol or anything. But
yeah, just nosing this, and I think there was a comment there in the chat that was super floral. I think this is American Oak Geeks bourbon casks that this is matured with. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sorry, get on a tangent. So we use ex bourbon. They're cut down to 50 litre cask these ones you're trying now. So.
And like what a spirit, like that is floral but so clean and so precise. And I think just for everyone, and this is not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just the fact of if we go back 7-10 years in Australian whiskey, people coming into market with new releases, everything pretty much without fail was super cask driven. And to sort of come to market and within the first 4 months producing a whiskey that is spirit that is so clean is amazing, is fascinating. I mean, I'm going to throw to someone else who makes an exceptional spirit here in Christy from Killara. I mean, do you sort of see like for like in when you see really great spirit in other people's whiskies as well?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. It's always great to see other fantastic spirits. And it's really interesting trying all these tonight because I haven't tried most of them. So fun.
Well, that's good. We'll be asking you for a 1 to 8 at the end of tonight. So
I think they all get 1.
Yeah.
What's
with
this
8 being the
Killara
highest.
one? What's this Killara one? I don't know. What's that one?
Yeah, what's that? I don't know.
And they're unbelievably clean and precise, and just an absolute joy to nose. I haven't tried it yet, but just a real pleasure. Want to do a quick thing as well here from Ollie Maruda. They're jumping in. Noticed a few distilleries have mascots. There's a few distillery dogs around. I've seen some distillery cats as well. But have you guys got a yowie or something, or maybe a bit of a haunted, maybe a ghost?
Maybe some Kinglake mysterious creatures about, probably.
Awesome. I'm going to hazard a guess. Sorry, go on.
I was going to also say, again, with us, we've tried to probably stay away from cask releases as well. We're going to try and just stick with, consistent line and then build our brand on this sort of ex-bourbon. We've got some red gum and other things going on. But, like I said, one of our things is, yes, we're just going to stick with no cask releases.
So, I mean, this just on that, and this O'Grady's the one that we're drinking tonight is a batch of about or just under 1,000, 998 bottles, but O'Grady's stand will be available moving forward. I mean, how do you create the consistency? Are you finding that the casks are producing pretty consistent results, or are you having to blend a little bit?
Just batches, yeah. I mean, they're all the same barrels. Obviously, every barrel has its different taste, but they're all Maker's Mark, ex-bourbon Maker's Mark. So, yeah, we're just doing batches with the hope that will bring some consistency. Obviously, as you all know, there's still variation between batches. Doesn't matter how many barrels you put together, 10, 50. But, yeah, so we're just hoping to try and create that consistent taste by batches.
Yeah, amazing. Now,
Dean's giving me a big I don't know about this.
No. It's nothing like that at all. It's just at the moment, I know trying to get a hold of Maker's Mark barrels is going to be near impossible for the next 6 to 12 months. So, we've always got to have contingency plans out there because Australia is not going to see any Maker's Mark barrels till March, probably at best. Mm-hmm. So, and that goes for the whole bourbon industry as a whole. They're just not dumping bourbon at the moment. So, I think as distillers, we've got to have contingency plans, always in place.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he was laughing, Chantel, because I texted him to ask him to move to the right so I could see what was on TV.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was actually laughing at. I was trying to cover it up.
What is on TV?
If it's Love Island, we're transferring now.
If it's Love Island, I'm moving out. It's not Love Island, Scott. Don't worry.
No, I actually just moved out of a house mid-lockdown from a housemate that watched it religiously, so I never have to watch it again, which is fantastic. I'm going to hazard a guess that being such a new distillery, there's a few people on the panel that haven't tried a Kinglake before, and I do apologize. I keep trying to say Kinglake and catching.
I know everyone does. It's fine.
So is anyone here first Kinglake try? Any sort of comments on this release? Peter, I'm going to throw you under the bus, mate.
The wood is quite different from what I was expecting before. I did warm this one up again, like the one from Stuart, but got a tiny little hint of licorice there for a moment, then it vanished. It settled right down and went quite floral, although it's not really those sweet sort of flowers. I wish I could remember names of things that I know in the back of my head there. There's a name there, I can call it a flower of some sort, but yeah, and no, it's really interesting because it's certainly not wood driven like the port and the sherry barrels and those sort of things. So it's very interesting. I love whiskies that are just different, and this is different. And yeah, I really enjoyed drinking. I wish I had a whole bottle of it here. I can get into a sample. I can't analyse it well enough at the moment, but no, I love it. Yes, and it is very different from Stuart's one. That's for sure.
Well, I'm sure I probably owe you a bottle, Peter, with all the times I've messaged you and asked you the questions we're setting up. So I could probably send one down for thanks.
Well, yeah, I'd have a big library because people from all over the world text me for quizzing about this. That. You're not the only one.
It's really oily. Like it's a different oil. Like it's sort of like a really viscous whiskey. I don't know if you found that. Like it was almost like it's sort of got this sweet shampoo kind of smell, but it's really smooth and oily. It's really different. Good job.
I get a little bit on the palate. It's almost perfumed, and it really reminds me of old Four Roses bourbon. It used to have the same character. It's beautiful.
Yeah, excellent. And Nick, you were about to jump in there?
Yeah, I mean, I really have a soft spot for as an ex-bourbon cask, malt. I think like these days, like so many people do sherry and experiment with crazy casks, and I think it gets, it's probably, the most malt is produced in bourbon cask, right? In Australia, maybe not, but I think it's great, super clean. I've heard some really good things in trade about this spirit from kind of retailers in Victoria. So really glad I've had the chance to try it and love the sustainable ethos of the distillery. I think it's great.
Cool, thank you. You can now purchase me at the Oak Barrel.
Yeah, somebody said about that shampoo note. Yeah, I get it. It's not not being rude about shampoo, but they put lovely flavours in shampoo, so you like using it. But a lot of other things going on there as well, of course. But
it's okay, Peter. Even though you haven't been in lockdown, we've all been. There's all been a time where you've needed to grab something in the house to drink when you've drunk everything else. So we understand. Look, Chantel, mate, congratulations! An excellent start. There's only good things coming for yourself and Sam, who I believe is off screen somewhere wrangling some young'uns and that sort of stuff. So. Give from everyone, and I'm actually like what Liam said in the chat. I'll bring it up again. Glass full of magnolias, and I think that's an excellent. And you should actually take that and run with it for a release in the future. That name, but a great release. So you should be very proud of what you've done so far, and look forward to coming down because it sounds like there's lots of things to see and do at your distillery, and dare not touch because it sounds like I might break things, but definitely stand well back and look at. Which would be excellent. So, congratulations again. But we might go from debutante to debutante, if I'm getting that word correctly, and bring up a whiskey that I think is going to be a little bit different to this one. And Paul Shand, who thankfully has a big pop-up banner behind him because I couldn't grab in the images I was taking of the bottles the right way to represent the imagery on these bottles correctly. And I can see there's a guitar in the other corner, so we don't know how this will go, but maybe after the 8th we'll get a sing-along. But Paul, mate, welcome to Whisky Fair, and congratulations on essentially your first 2 releases, one of which we're going to try.
Yeah, thanks, Scotty. Yeah, it's exciting times for us. I guess we've been going now for, about nearly 4 years. About 4 years ago, I got a bit fed up. Our funding was short, and I decided I wanted to stop working. So asked for redundancy. They gave it to me after 6 months and bought a 2,200 litre still from Burnsey in Griffith. And yeah, I was going to say it's been hard work since then, but I think compared with Chantel, I think we've had it pretty easy. We're on the grid. But Tria Prima. It's pretty well a one-man show, so it's just myself. I do all the cleaning, the brewing, the distilling. Thinking
I
about
like how you said cleaning first, Paul, because that's like the main job.
One of the first things I thought about was the name, and obviously I don't have an Australian heritage, so what do I do? But my background is in chemistry and geology, and I've always been interested in alchemy and the early alchemists, and I thought, well, let's have that theme. So the Tria Prima is the 3 primes of alchemy, and our story is that science has shown that turning base metals into gold using Tria Prima to make the Philosopher's Stone just didn't work. But there was a small sect in the Celtic land who discovered the true Tria Prima, which is the barley, the water, and the oak, which make liquid gold. And that's our little story. And our theme is going to be wizards and witches. When I talked to the guy who's done the designs and the whiskey labels, and they're quite stunning. Originally, I love Japanese labels. I wanted a Japanese caricature style, but he came up with 2 designs, and one of them was the sort of Renaissance style art. And he said, look, I can't paint like these Renaissance artists, but I can have a good go. And I just loved what he did. And the one you see behind me, that's his wife, that he hired costumes. She dressed up, took some photographs, and it's all digital art. The other release is called Brusha, which is our tonic cask. That was his sister. So everyone's an original painting. And one day he phoned me up, said, I'm not happy with the design, and came up with a logo just to the this side of the photograph. Said, what do you think about that? And that tells the whole story about the Tria Prima, the barley, the oak, and the wood. So for our first release, the Enchantree, that's an Apera. It's a combination of 2 100-litre Apera casks. The Brusha, the tawny one, was a mix of 3 100-litre casks. But the Enchantree, yeah, this one is very much cask driven. On the nose, the age, it's about a 2 cask for 2 years 3 months and 2 years 6 months. So they're relatively young, but we were so desperate for some money, we thought we're going to stick with these ones. The tawny and the Pera we thought we're nearly there. Possibly could do with another year, but I think they're very drinkable at the moment. The bourbon casks much lighter, but they take a bit longer, and they weren't quite ready. But certainly the Enchantress, I love sherry casks, and whereas the Brusha is quite sweet, the Enchantress is quite dry, especially in the palate and the finish. And it's got some of the classic sherry notes. It's got the sort of the nuts, the dried fruits. It's something I was hoping to achieve, and I think certainly partly achieved in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, you get a lot of that Apera for any international watches that's sherry in Australia. But you say, like, maybe it could go another year. I'd be very careful leaving this another summer. I think that balance is right on. And you know, I went back to the Brady Bunch as you were sort of talking about that, and because it seemed like the same time everyone was drinking. I mean, you know, distillers out there who, you know, have done a few summers and seen this sort of thing. I mean, for me as a drinker, that seems pretty bang on where this has been released.
Yeah. I've got up on our website some tasting notes from Craig Daniels, the Malt Maniac, and he was extremely positive about it. He talked about the balance. I think the balance is there. One of the things, most of the casks I started with initially were 100 litres. And then after about 6 months, I've laid down a lot of 300-litre casks in port sherry bourbon. So transitioning now up to 250, 300. But for the 100s, I mean, maybe in the Adelaide Hills where it is really hot and we do have extreme temperature, maturation is pretty fast. Then yeah, I'll maybe gradually leave some to 3 and 4 years just to see what happens. But I certainly like this one. Hope you folks do as well.
Yeah, it's yummy.
Yeah, it's good. Paul, did you say it's all Apera? Because I get this really porty kind of beginning of the nose to it. I don't know if anyone else does.
Yeah.
So is it just Apera?
It's just Apera, yeah.
Wow,
So these are These were McWilliams. And the Enchantress was a bit strange because the two casks are mixed. One was a golden honey color, and the other one, I've got an example here. I'm not sure if you can see that. That was pretty brown, but
yeah,
that's the combination of them together give a much better balance than these individually. So the first releases are all 700 mils, and they're going to be 46%, and we're calling that the traditional range. Our single casks will be coming out probably in a couple of months, and we've got two casks, one Para, one Tawny, which are beautiful. They're going to be coming out cask strength 500 mils, and they're going to be called the Rebus range. And the Rebus is the ultimate in alchemy. It's the bringing together of the male and the female, the spirit and the soul, the ultimate. So we got.
Sounds like the Atwoods.
The Atwoods. Perfection.
Bringing together the male and the female, perfection.
But one thing is
I've done too much already, haven't I?
You can always pick who went first on the tasting, can't you?
Yeah. This bottle here.
One of my good friends who was on last night, Ian Schmidt. I support the Corowa, he support Adelaide, but we'll forgive that. But we use the same barley, we use the same yeast. I use Adelaide Hills water, he uses town water. But our processes are very similar. But we produce each of our whiskies has a certain DNA. And we met up again with David Pierce a couple of months ago with a number of variations from our different casks, and each distillery has its own DNA. And it's just amazing, really. It's maybe the combination of factors. Our stills are different, our waters are different.
It's like you've obviously had a career as a geochemist, so a scientist, but quite and here's someone who failed science to sort of rank how science degrees and science jobs are quite a high in the scientist rank job. I don't know whether it's my knowledge of that's coming through, but there is so much precision in this whiskey. There's no rough edges. There's nothing out of balance here. There's no, and that's not just about the distilling, but also your nose and your appreciation of which barrels are going to work and which ones aren't. Which I think is fantastic, and you mentioned it's yourself and presumably your wife, as the team behind this.
Yeah.
We are drinking, your passion and your flavour when we drink this, and I think that's really important. That these aren't teams with 10 distillers and 5 blenders and 17 cleaners. We're drinking what your vision. Exactly the same. We're drinking the Kinglake vision 10 minutes ago, and now drinking your vision. I can, for lack of a better way to say, we can taste a bit of you and your ethos in this, which I think is really, really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think my wife, she's of Vietnamese origin, and she can't drink alcohol. She's into cooking, but she has a wonderful nose. I just give her things, and she'll describe things to me which I don't get until she says them, and I just go, wow, that's amazing. And if something's a bit off, she'll be honest and say, it's not quite right. So it's great to have that support.
And just for reference, is she available by the hour to help out other distillers that might need a nose like that?
At a cost, yes.
Because I think there could be a secondary business line to sort of just people with exceptional noses to go in and help distillers that might need that second opinion every now and again.
It's like Ian Schmidt said last night about his partner Fingers, that he was the chef and he's the one who does the blending. And I think just people become chefs for a reason, and that's they can appreciate balance and so on. And exactly the same can be applied to whiskey.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to hazard a second guess, as I did with Chantel and Kinglake, that this might be a few people's Tria Prima's first impressions. So I want to throw to the panel any comments here, and first jump in gets the floor.
I love the burnt sugar, not burnt, brown sugar smell on the nose. It's really, really good.
What I love is that it's a very young whiskey, but very easy drinking, and it's not hot at all. That's fantastic about it. to me, it's just it's a lovely light drinking whiskey, and it's not hot. Great.
What a flavour. Beautiful.
And that was a 100-litre barrel for 2 years, did you say, Paul?
Yeah, it was between 2 years, 3 months, and 2 years, 6 months.
Yes. Yeah, there's no way we'd get that in a 100-litre. We'd have to wait at least 3 years minimum.
Yeah. It's strange how whiskey's changing the cask. I mean, one interesting thing about some of my casks is at 18 months they're beautiful. At 2 years I get lots of oak tannins, and I thought, oh, I've left these too late. And then another 3 months later, the oak tannins got overtaken by a lot of these flavors. And you know, sometimes it's good to wait because you don't know what's going to happen. My understanding is the oak tannins remain constant throughout the life of a cask, but then some other flavors will come in, or maybe the oak will come to the foreground. And I don't know. I don't have enough experience to say what's the optimum age, and also, you know, how long do you leave these, and if it does go off, will it get better? That's something we're all learning about, I think.
It was quite fascinating last night. There was a quick conversation about the casks that go wrong, that particularly from a consumer point of view, we never see, and how many of them happen and how you deal with them. So that's quite fascinating. You know, Paul, you're talking about, okay, maybe you're seeing some notes you're not particularly happy with, but after a little while and a bit of patience, they come around and that sort of thing. And Peter, I mean, you were in that chat last night and said you got some brandy that's not looking particularly crash hot at the moment.
It's never going to come right. It's just got so tannic and, like I said, mouth puckering. It's absolutely awful. There's some beautiful notes underneath there if you can ever get past that dry. If you have a sip of it, you can't talk. You know, it's just so dry.
Sounds good.
Tongue won't slide. Yeah. It's a little 50 litre. It's nearly 11 years old now.
Can you send some to Dean, Peter?
I was about to say, where there's a few people in this chat, myself first and foremost, that might be, you know, people might send full cases of that too. Just be careful what you describe that, Peter.
Yeah. But there's another barrel I had, as Paul was saying, that you know, that tannin sort of built. Well, I had a barrel that just started in one summer a couple of years ago. Then just at the start of the summer, I thought, gee, that's beautiful. That's really, really nice. And I didn't need to bottle it at the time. And towards the end of the summer, everything went too woody. And I thought, no, I've ruined that. I'm just going to have to blend that out with another barrel. And anyway, I just left it there. It was in the, halfway down a rack, and I couldn't get it out easy. And it's a couple of years ago now, and it's actually come really good again. But it was good, then it went bad, yeah, really nasty. Then it's coming right again now. It's actually quite a nice barrel now. I just have to watch it as it comes in the next summer in case it goes over the hill. But yeah, they change. We can change in a month or so, especially over the summertime. You know, from bad to good and back to bad again. You just got to pick a spot. But I just get, you know, any of those barrels except that really, really nasty one that's, you know, just way over the top. Yeah, you can just blend them out, you know, with other barrels.
Yeah. I know we need to move on a little bit quickly, but Christy, I'm gonna throw to you quickly and you can answer this as honestly or dishonestly as you like. This is completely up to you. But for someone who makes arguably one of the best spirits in Australia, surely you haven't had, and you know, and Killara hasn't been going for 30 years to have the weight of numbers of barrels yet. Surely you haven't had a barrel that you've just gone, nah, I can't do anything with this yet.
You might want to talk to my brother about that. So Jack did a wash run for me a number of years ago, and things went pretty pear-shaped, but I persevered with it and distilled it out anyway to see what it was going to be like. And it's a few years old now, and I don't like it, but other people do. It's yeah, just that one.
So it can happen to the best of us.
Sure can.
Says someone who's never distilled a thing in his life, but he's going to pretend to be an expert in this chat.
Yeah,
mate.
But that's the magic and the alchemy of it. You know, you can plan for everything, but that maturation process, you might think you know what's going to happen, but sometimes you get oddballs thrown at you.
Yeah. Or 100%. But like getting back, and I just very quickly, Paul, before we move on, you know, I'm a firm believer that whiskey is art. From the cheapest whiskey in the world to the most expensive silly thing in, you know, crystal decanter with diamonds ever. Like, whiskey is drinkable art, whether it's in a you know, just a Mount Franklin bottle, and this is actually New Make Spirit. Whether it is still art in itself, but I think it never more than what you guys done. I'll bring that photo up. I think the way you present your whiskey and the way that your vision has come through, I think, is really special. And I'm showing this because the photos of the bottles on my website definitely don't do it justice, because I'm not a great photographer. But I think, just showing that really well. So, mate, congratulations. But obviously, we can't drink labels, but the whiskey is exceptional as well, which is very, very good. So, mate, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing what's coming, because this is a small batch of.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Of a few hundred bottles this first batch.
Yeah, I think the Brucia, the Tawny, was about 300 bottles, and the Apera Enchantree was about 200.
Yeah, so tiny.
Yeah.
Tony, mate. No, congratulations. You'll be very proud, and we look forward to seeing what's coming up. And we'll move on now to we'll go. Where are we? We're going to go a little bit east and head to the first of our border distilleries tonight, with Lee and Bree Atwood from the Backwoods Distillery, with a sample of something that's coming up, I believe.
Yes.
And hopefully
okay. I guess I'll talk about this one a bit. It's probably a good one to follow Paul's, actually, because this is an Apera cask as well. And yeah, I guess we got the brief from Scotty to try and pick something a little bit unusual, and it doesn't really sound unusual, just an Apera cask at 48%, but it's a little bit different for what we've done in the past. I guess the story of this whiskey started 3 or 4 years ago when I was up at Voyager, Craft Malt and Stu. When they could invite people up there, they'd invite all the customers up for salami making, and there was a beer tap that I kind of attached myself to for the night, and it was I think it was batch brewing, where we're making a beer from one of Stu's malts, and the malt was called Voodoo, and I was just obsessed with this beer. I just sat there and drank it all night. It was so delicious, and then I just got obsessed by this malt, and I said to Stu, "What is it? What is it?" And he showed me, sold me some. And I took it back, and I've sort of I started using it in the single malt, and then for this batch I turned it up a little bit and turned up the dial. So yeah, for people that know about brewing probably will recognise, will understand Voodoo malt as like a crystal malt in brewing. So it just spends a little bit more time in the kiln, and you get these amazing kind of caramel honey characters from the malt. So yeah, so that's the first thing. We've sort of changed the malt. Our mash bill a little bit. And the other thing is the Apera cask that we've got, they're from the Riverina and McWilliams as well, but we've used a different char level. So most of our releases up to this point have been kind of heavy char. So I wanted to play around with that a little bit, and we've done just a sort of a really light char. So it's just a char number 1, which we haven't done before. So it's really interesting to see what, the difference that actually brings to our whiskey. The other thing about it is that we actually end up, I guess, maturing our cask at different strengths. So it went into barrel at 63.5, and it spent 2 years there. And then 6 months ago, I pull them out and I water them down. So I brought these down to around, they were all a little bit different, but I bring them down to about 58% and leave them for another 6 months. And I just find that gives the spirit and the water just more time to interact with the oak at a different level, and it just brings more complexity and just really interesting notes to the whiskey. So yeah, it's a really interesting one, I think, to follow Paul's, just to see maybe a different char level, and maybe different malts and probably cast from the same winery, but just different whiskey.
And it's not released yet or bottled yet, so it's still in the cask, probably 2 or 3 months away.
Yep.
So a little preview of our next single malt. We have no single malt on the website at the moment. Just a small little release that we've got at our cellar door tasting room. So it'll be our next single malt. Hopefully, will see us through till Christmas. Hopefully, so we're a little light on the single malt casks at the moment.
So, I mean, that's a really interesting sort of concept for people who are drinking at home, who maybe haven't had the, glory of running through distilleries and that sort of thing. It's not, you're saying 2 or 3 months, so it's not like to see a summer where it's going to be quite aggressive maturation and up and down in temperatures. So between now and then, I mean, it's Australia, it's going to go up and down a bit. But what about this says to you 2 or 3 months? So what are you looking for in those next 2 or 3 months that'll perfect this?
It's probably just being really aware of probably something similar to what Paul was talking about, just knowing that point where maybe just that balance, just looking for that balance and wanting that influence from the cask, but just not overdoing it. So I think there's still maybe a little bit more room for cask, but just not too much. I really want that sort of, that mold I was talking about to really stay forward and be able to find it and not just get smashed by the oak.
Mm.
So just on that, this might be a little bit different in terms of the malt mash that people tried in single malt before. Is this a precursor of things to come? Is everything under this recipe moving forward, or are we evolving again?
So there's a couple of batches sort of that I did with turning up the dial on that voodoo malt, but then I've slipped back for just our regular mash bill. So yeah, like the intention was that would be sort of special cask. That'd be different, like something unique and something a little bit different.
Yeah, awesome. Now you guys have in between lockdown, well, not in between, basically as soon as lockdown hit, you're about to open your cellar door, and you've been, had every turn has sort of gone from there. There seems to be a bit of chat about salami in the chat there. Is this a yak and dander thing? Is there salami making happening at the cellar door? Or am I reading that wrong?
Well, there's nothing happening at the cellar door right now. We're currently in our 4th lockdown since we opened in February. So we had our first lockdown the weekend we were due to open. And then I think our second one was around the Queen's birthday. Yeah. And then we just had a little snap, 4-day over the weekend kind of knockdown. Got let out early on a Monday night, which was nice. We're not open till the Thursday, so then we got locked back up again. So it's I don't think Dan likes the weekend or something, but yeah. Lots of salami making around here. Lots of Italian families around here. Scotty?
But no bakeries anymore, and that's a great shame.
No, do you know what? Guess what? We've got news for you.
Yes.
There is a bakery opening in our building.
Next door.
Oh, no way. That's cheating. Salami. Hold on. We got salami, we got hot bread, and we got whiskey. Yeah, no, I don't like it.
And coffee. We've got a coffee shop going in too.
And a cheese place that makes cheese, because then that'd sort of round my whole life out.
Yeah.
And a Bunnings next door.
No.
Yeah. For those who aren't familiar, Yak and Dander, where Backwoods is in the sort of northern alpine region of Victoria, the high country, and Beechworth, which is about half an hour south, is famous for the Beechworth Bakery. And the only reason you would go from Beechworth to Yak and Dander is to visit a couple of excellent museums, but also to find what was actually the best bakery in town. You'd fight off all the wasps in Australia, would conglomerate on the main street, and you'd fight them off, but the bakery was good enough. But then apparently the bakery got bought by the Beechworth Bakery, so I'm glad you're bringing it back.
It did. And now you can come up to Yak. The building we're in is called Yak Station, because it's the site of an old railway station. So we've got train memorabilia, Scotty. We've got bakery. We've got whiskey. You'll never leave.
And the salami.
And salami.
The baker's been actually stewing some of his apples in our whiskey to do a pastry, so I'm excited by that one.
Dean, you must be so proud to have the Backwoods bit of
I'm very proud to have them close by. I think it's so great to have a brother-sister combination and a distillery close. Yes, bro.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we came across. Should we keep going?
Please yourself.
Can you hear that?
There's like a funny thing on it.
No, it's great having them so close by. It's anytime something's happening, we can always head up there and say hello, get them to try our spirit. They come down. When we're getting barrels delivered, they get delivered to one central spot, and we can always catch up for coffee. And I think that's part of the beauty of having distillery friends everywhere. That you can catch up on a regular basis, and you can ply your wares on them. And the guys at Backwoods obviously
do a fantastic job up there, and they've got their distillery imprint, and we've got ours, and we stay very uniquely us. But it's great having them close by.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm out of audio. So just talk amongst yourselves for a little while I fix this.
We came across a little description of us online the other day that said we were a brother and sister team.
And it made me so happy. I've been as happy ever before in my life.
John was happy a few weeks before that. He was in a pamphlet where they introduced him as an event as Mr. Bruce, King Bruce.
I think the brother and sister.
True,
Yeah.
Just a tiny bit of housekeeping. Is anyone else's audio an absolute nightmare at the moment?
Audio's no
Don't think mine's
It happened when Dan started talking. I think it's his fault.
Anybody here?
Yeah, you're all right.
It's like we've had a healing.
I reckon Dean and good two in the same house, and it's causing some sort of interference between the two of them.
Oh, no,
Call the police.
So we're all back? Can everyone hear?
Yeah,
that's
good.
Yeah.
Did you turn it off and on again, Scotty?
No. I just turned Dean off, and I'm not going to turn it back on again until he fixes it. So thank you, thank everyone in the chat for because I thought I was going insane for a second there. I've just thrown my speakers out and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know what you guys talked about while I was off grid, but that's an excellent whiskey.
A really good whiskey, lovely.
What are you going to call it if it's slightly different to the normal?
The way we've sort of done all our releases is just batch. So batch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're all unique in their own way. So just applying another.
This will be batch 5, our single malt batch 5.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're just over a year into having whiskey on the market. So we've just released our batch 4 rye, and this will be our batch 5 single malt. So getting through the batches every 3 months or so, which is just keeping us in stock at the distillery door at the moment. So we had to sneak a little single cask into the tasting room because we did run out there, and we really worried about, when we were busy, when we're open, picking up a lot of word of mouth and a lot of visitation, and whiskey's selling really well there. So we definitely don't want to run out.
A pub with no beer could be really sad. We're keen to keep the distillery door stocked. But we're excited for this. This will be a decent sized batch for us, so about 800 bottles. So one of our bigger releases. But still, the single malt, it goes pretty fast. So we need it to last us over the Christmas period. So we'll hold on to most of it for the cellar door, provided we're open again. But and flick a little bit online and flick a bit over to Scotty, I think. But
that's great.
It's always so hard. It's always so hard with the releases, isn't it? You want to. How do you break it up? How much do you put in the tasting room versus online versus retail, wholesale? It's difficult, and then you end up with too much here and not enough here, and you're sold out. It's a biggest muddle, it really is.
We've literally got to a Sunday closing at the cellar door and sold the last bottle. So we spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday bottling. So we've got something for Thursday. So it's a bit hectic. We had a really great autumn. The autumn in the high country is just amazing. We get lots of tourists around Yakandanda. So we're really excited to be part of that tourist scene in our little town of 950 people, I think, is the population of Yak. So, but we're surrounded by lots of little towns. So it's a great little trip around the high country, and Yak's always on people's lists. So, having the border closures hard, so we do rely on a lot of Albury visitation as well. So it's a bit of a tricky time, but we've got a lot of online support. So. We ran the releases for the first 6 months all online before we opened up the tasting room. So we can kind of go back and forth between the two, ways of of running the business. But we definitely prefer having people tasting with us in the tasting room than sort of sending bottles out to, strangers online, which is still great. But it's so nice to have people come in and taste it with you, and then walk away with a bottle or two, which is what keeps us going. Yeah.
I mean, as a bona fide stranger online, don't discount us completely. Keep sending us the booze. Just mate, it really excellent drop there, and I think a different take on the distillery, which is really cool. Before we move on, I want to throw to Paul. I mean, Lee, you mentioned quickly, it's really cool to do these side by sides from your interest point of view. Paul, two a pair of casks, but completely different.
Again. Yeah, and they're both McWilliams as well. So I know every cask is unique, and the McWilliams casks vary. But again, the DNA of your distillery is different from mine. And this is just beautiful. I got fudge on the nose the first thing I smelled, and I love fudge. And then sort of citrus and esters on the taste, and completely different whiskies. But yeah, just wonderful. I just love the fact that every distillery is different, and as long as they're different and good, that's fantastic. It's great for Australian whiskey.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
And you're going to have a waiting list judged upon the comments here in terms of people rocking up to your distillery cellar door, which is excellent. We might move on. I do apologise for those sound issues. I thought it might have been me, which is why I sort of scrambled around, but it turned out it was Dean. So I probably could have fixed that earlier if I just muted him. So he's madly running around trying to fix it. But
I think he's actually going to write down everything I said.
Yeah.
Lee's protege. It's so good he can't talk.
Yeah. We'll move on quickly to a whiskey that I think is that everyone who enjoys Australian whiskey should try at least something from this distillery. I'm lucky enough to have tried a few of them, but Christy from Killara, who, as I've alluded to before, makes probably one of the best spirits in Australia. And we did have a guest there very quickly on your screen there, Christy, who I was going to say g'day to.
Yeah, he just ran off again.
Yeah, presumably not drinking whiskey, though, because looks a little bit too young. But
here he is.
G'day, mates. How are you?
Oh, they're talking to you. Say hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so this is Lockie, my 10-year-old. Hopefully assistant distiller one day, but
that's what our boys say.
Yeah.
So, yes, but it's his bedtime, so he's off to bed, aren't you?
Can you tell Lockie that when he gets up tomorrow, I'd like a couple of photos of him, because I need a haircut desperately here in lockdown, and I'd like that one, please.
Yeah,
that's the one I want.
His mullet.
Yeah, no,
he's got
that's
the
the one I
dirtiest
want.
mullet around.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And Auntie Alex says hi as well, Lockie.
Yeah, the kids miss Alex. They're going to come back.
I don't.
Yes, you do. You're so rude. Anyway, he's going.
Awesome. So let's make this 18 plus again and dive into some excellent whiskey.
So I've followed suit. This is an Apera barrel as well, but it was a 100 litre, matured for about 4.5 years, and then finished in a rum barrel for 8 weeks. Alex heard you, little shit. Yeah, so this is my sort of. I really like this style of whiskey. It's got that really nice sweet richness that seems to come from my still, which is different from most people's. I don't know if I can bring up a picture of it, but yeah, so I've got big things happening out at the distillery at the moment. I moved on to let's see if we can. Where's my? There it is. Does that work? That's my still.
Yeah, perfect.
So shiny.
Not anymore. So yeah, we moved on to 26 acres out in Richmond, which is about 30 minutes out of Hobart. And we're growing in the process of organising to grow barley for the whiskey, and then all the botanicals and fruit and stuff for the gin and liqueurs and whatnot that we do. So having a little sort of self-sufficient site out there, which will be awesome. We're not quite as off-grid as EU, Chantal, but yeah, we're sort of pretty close to it. But yeah, and you know, I have come up with all the other issues that everyone else has, not having enough stock and having to, you know, leave releases for longer. And I try and also make it so that there's whiskey available at the cellar door, which is so nice that I now have a cellar door. I also now have a bond store, which is fantastic. It got finished last week. So I'll be able to move all my barrels from the warehouse in Cambridge out to site, which I'm excited about. And I've got another building going in, which will be a dedicated tasting room, distillery school and function room, which is also awesome. And yeah, and my mum's commandeered a corner of the property for her rose garden. She's now moved away from distilling alcohol and is moving into distilling rose oil for perfume and rose water and stuff. So she's all excited about that.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Dean, no, I gave you 30 seconds there, and you're still.
No, back in the naughty corner for you, Dean.
But mate, I'll message you again. I don't know what's going because you were perfect up until that point, so I don't know what's going on there. But I mean, Christy, this whiskey is exceptional in its purity and its clarity, which is what everything Killara does is sort of gone to now. For people who maybe are not overly familiar, that the hint might be in the name, like Booth, of who your parents might be and your father, but potentially more importantly your mother in the role she played. But I think it's really important to say like how important your role has been in shaping Killara Distillery. And this is not a previous distillery. This is very much your distillery, and decisions made there, and the spirit that's made is yours. It's not anyone else's. You know, when you're going into to make that spirit, and when you make changes with the stills and location, what are you looking at in terms of refining the spirit and changing the spirit so that it still works for you and it's still what you want? Because I know there's a lot of distillers, and I'm you know, maybe people told me this in confidence, and I'm going to broadcast it. People told us like, how do I make a spirit like that? You know, how do I do that? So give a bit of insight. Is like, what is your thought process in when you're distilling and making changes?
Well, I guess in terms of location, that was always going to happen. Where I was initially set up in Goodwood was never going to be a long-term location for me. And once we found the property in Richmond, that was always going to be our home for the distillery. And so I guess through necessity had to move the still. But, you know, I guess it's about knowing your equipment and knowing, like what the guys before me have said, knowing your recipe, knowing your raw ingredients, knowing what it is that you like and what it is that you don't like. And so, you know, I guess I'm lucky in that I've worked in the industry for a really long time now. And that's given me the opportunity to, I guess, grow my skills and grow, you know, my palate and have an idea of what it is that I like. And, you know, those things aren't necessarily what my dad would do. And in terms of Killara, it just worked out in that when I started Killara, Mum and Dad were still under their contract where they couldn't help anyone. So they sort of had the no compete clause. And so we kept them right at arm's length from my distillery, which really gave me the freedom to grow Killara in my own way and not have the added pressure of having them involved, even though they're super proud of what I do. They, you know, super helpful. If I've got any questions, they'll always help. They'll always be there for backup. But Killara really is my baby, I guess. It's yeah, it's good. And it's always going to be small. You know, I've got a 600 litre still. So when you guys are all talking about your 2,000, 4,000 litre stills, you know, giggling down here that I've got a 600 litre still and I'm pretty happy with that. But I do have my new still arriving in the next couple of weeks, and it's 1,400 litres, and you know that's going to be ginormous for me, and I can't wait to see what the differences are between the spirit on the new still versus the spirit on the old still, because my old still will always be my favourite, and it's modelled off the one that stood outside my bedroom door, which both of them are modelled off the 5 litre still that my mum purchased at the antique auction back in the day, that I have vague memories of being on our stovetop at home. So, I have a lot of family history and connection, and just hope that I do the family proud and continue on.
I think you're doing more than making your family proud at the moment. You're doing yourself proud, which is the most important thing. I want to echo a couple of comments there, in the chat there. I love this one from Kirsten, Justin, another Killara classic cracker. Liam, pears for days, 100%. This is fresh and crisp. And do you think that's coming from the rum cask at all, that rum finish? Is that influencing the pear at all? Or?
Yeah, it could be. It could be that rum influence, which I haven't done a lot of work with rum casks, and this one was just... It just worked out really well. It was just the right time, right place. I seem to have had a few barrels fall my way just by being in the right place at the right time, which is awesome. It's been an interesting journey, and I love the distillery. I love going out there. I have my dirty work boots that I stomp around in the paddock, and we've got, someone was talking about pets before. We've got Bonnie, the distillery dog, who everybody loves, so she has fun running around, and it's just really great being able to be part of things like this tonight, even when the world's crazy, even though Tasmania is, I don't know, we could be far away, no one would know because we don't let anyone in, so it's good.
What type of dog do you have?
Bonnie is a Smithfield. So she's a sheepdog, which she was trying to chase the sheep the other day, which is not ideal. But she's only 10 months old, so she's still crazy, but we love her, luckily.
So someone's been very, very quiet in the past little while, and I haven't picked on a little bit, is Nick Baxter from Archie Rose. We're going through the gamut of whiskies here tonight. I mean, what do you think of this, Nick, in terms of the purity of the spirit from a still that is very small, and as we sort of joked about earlier, no one quite knows how big the Archie Rose distillery is, and there still is, because we're still measuring it.
Yes, indeed. Well, mate, it's outside my 5Ks at the moment, so even I'm not allowed down there to work, actually. So joining you from my office / bedroom at home in Rosebery. But yes, it's cracking. I mean, I remember seeing Christy over at Whiskey Freedom in Perth. I think that was probably the first time I met her. A few years ago now, before Archie Rose had any whiskey, for sure. I think we had some cask samples maybe, and trying some of her spirit then, and was always really impressed by it. And this is great. I think super agree with what the people have been saying about pears. Right, it's like an orchard on the nose. It's really beautiful, super clean. I mean, I think 47%. It's really, really well balanced.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. So I mean, this is a bit of a sample thing. So I mean, is this core, is there a core range Killara at the moment? Is there one coming? Where does this sit in the Pantheon?
I think this is sort of more of a special release. I don't have a core range per se. I will be doing a Solero cask moving forward into the future, which will have a bit more continuity between each batch. But currently I bottle all my barrels individually. I know that some people don't like doing that, but I really like to celebrate the differences and uniqueness between each barrel. And so as I've moved, I started off with quite a few 20-litre barrels, and I'm sort of coming towards the end of that, and now the 100 litres are coming online. But I've sort of still have a bit of a gap where I was closed down when I close down in Goodwood before I could start production again in Richmond, won't have huge amounts of stock. I'll still have some stock, and I'll always try and keep some for the cellar door, but just not huge amounts online. But I guess predominantly my favourite style of whiskey is more from a tawny or from a port barrel. So I have quite a lot of those around. I know there's been people hounding me for bourbon barrels. I did release one of those just recently, but it was a 20-litre barrel, so I think I only had about 40 bottles out of it. And yeah, I've got a few different things coming up. I have at the moment a tawny barrel that's been finished in a Lefroy cask, so that's kind of fun. It's sort of peated without being peated whiskey. And I want to experiment with Tasmanian peat moving forward into the future, which I'm really excited about. So there's sort of a few different projects going on. I'm also trying to grow my own oak trees so I can grow my own barrels, which is more of a long-term project.
50 years from now? Fantastic.
Well, maybe Lockie's kids will see that one come to fruition.
Yeah, see it. Nothing short-term in the game of whiskey.
No.
Look, Christy, thank you so much for showcasing that excellent drop. And there's we were joking before. I can't foresee a time where there's a truly not great Killara from everything I've tried so far. So that's exceptional.
No pressure, Scotty. No pressure.
No pressure. Well, I didn't say that. That came from someone else who said no pressure in the chat. Christy can do no wrong. There we go. I'll bring it back up again. So it didn't come from me. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon, mate. Awesome. So we might let him out of jail and see, because he's technically up next. See if we can hear him, and he doesn't, do anything. Come in, Dean. Come in, Corowa. Can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you. Yes, Scott. Can you hear me?
I can. It's still a little bit Darth Vader, but we're not getting the echo and reverberation potentially. Is just everyone else on the panel? Are we okay with that audio?
It was just sabotaging our little bit, I think.
Every bit I can do to sabotage Backwoods.
I hesitantly bring you up onto the big screen here. Apologies for the audio if it does break up a bit, but we had some weird casks last night on the get together. We had a ginger beer cask from Starwood, which is a bit of a cult whiskey now. We had a cola cask from our friends Dave Pearce and the team at 5 Nines Distillery in South Australia, and we're now getting into a maple cask sample, which I didn't know maple syrup went into barrels, but there you go.
Yeah, so a lot of the time in Canada, they produce a lot of maple syrup over there, and then to get that depth and complexity and that oak characteristic into their the maple syrup, they actually aged in there for 12 months. So I actually lived, when I finished high school, I lived in Canada for 2 years, so I did a little bit of work with maple syrup. I'm not a maple syrup expert. There's no secret about that, but it throws, especially being in a bourbon cask, it just throws something really unique and really different in there. So you get that depth and complexity from the wood and the bourbon cask, and they're cut down to 96 litre barrels as well. So you get that nice bit of sweetness on the back. It's when you sort of said find the weirdest and the most wonderful thing. Look, this is not the weirdest thing we've got, but it definitely it does throw down that alley of being weird and unique.
96 litres, bit of a interesting number to knock the barrel down to.
Yeah, it's a very North American sort of thing. They all work in gallons. And,
I made the grave mistake last year of when the very first Corowa maple syrup barrel was taking less than I normally would from a single cask release, going, no one's going to be into this, and it sold out in about 3 minutes. And then it was all gone.
Sorry, I think that particular release we sold everything in 10 minutes, and there was 100, maybe 140 bottles. That sound about right, Scott?
Yeah, I didn't make it, mate. I just sold a couple of them.
During lockdown, my memory has absolutely been shot between drinking more casks and trying to remember what we did in a previous life outside of lockdown. But it's, the life of a distiller and in a distillery is ever evolving. So we're always looking for different weird and wonderful casks while still maintaining that core range and normality as well. So I learned how to make whiskey in Scotland at Kilhoman, and I love their ethos of the way they do their cask management and the way they've got that core range there. So I just loved how that sort of fitted into the way they were doing it, and wanted to bring that back to Australia. So we've got our 5 core ranges. We're about to add a 6th in bourbon casks, which I'm also very nervous about because we're not going to be able to get any bourbon casks till March or April. But yeah, and then we release these single casks once a month, something whenever we feel like it. Really, it's pretty relaxed in Corowa. We when we get around to something, we give it a go.
So, I mean, just on what we're drinking now, for those of us lucky enough to grab the pack, this is Cask 218. So this isn't released right now, but is this in bottle waiting for release? Is this out of cask or is this still in cask?
It'll probably get released in. Definitely asking the wrong person, but probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Okay, so it's ready to go.
Yeah, it's ready to go. It's in bottle. It's sitting there. It's sitting in a plan. I sit in planning meetings and I give my opinion, but yeah, sometimes I don't win, which I don't understand how that works. But anyway,
it's tough at the top sometimes, mate. I understand.
Is it matured, Dean, from the get-go in the maple barrel, or is it just finished?
This one's not. So we do have a lot of casks that are matured in the get-go, and what we're actually finding is they're like putting whiskey into a really old musket, tawny, or a Para barrel. If you've got those really, really old casks, it syrups up too much, and it's like drinking a high-strength liqueur, and it's just way over the top. And the maple's definitely no exception to that. So what we actually did was we did a bourbon cask, 100-litre bourbon cask, and we matured it in that for 3.5 years, and we finished this one off for 6 months in the maple syrup cask.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Dino, have you got any?
I think it's bloody lovely, mate. I really enjoyed it.
Dino, have you got any peated stuff in maple?
We certainly do.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
Wow.
We've actually, so we've just released, I don't know who's getting their allocation and what's happening there. Anyway, Whiskey Loot are releasing the first ever dreaded drop. So obviously our distiller's got dreads down to his arse. Very unique character. You can't miss him. Big dreads. And we wanted to informise the people that make the whiskey at Corowa and the people involved at it. So the dreaded distiller, he's got a dreaded drop coming out. I think it's Father's Day from memory. And it's a Chardonnay cask, full-term Chardonnay cask with peated malt in it. And his number 2 is going to be a maple syrup cask with peated in it as well. So, there's that really different sort of, it's not released yet, Lee. Things I'm going to do for you, I'll tell you what. That's the next particular one. I forgot I even gave you a bottle.
A quick question on this, Doug. I apologise if I'm getting this question wrong, but will the flavours change much over time? And I think, I'm going to apply that to every part of this whiskey. Like, how quickly does whiskey in a maple syrup cask change? And is there any potential of change in bottle? Because we see that often with natural ingredients in liqueurs and things. We see it in wine. Obviously, we see it in things like Fernet Branca. We see it in gin. With juniper things like. This is a new frontier. Are you seeing much in evolve in these sorts of casks and bottles?
Yeah, look, the maple's obviously a very select one in that we've been dealing with muscat and eperas and ports, for quite some time now. The maple itself, it changes a little bit in the bottle, and not only that, when it oxidizes, so when you actually open it and it starts oxidizing, it does change significantly and it opens up. And we found that with our last release as well. This particular one is down at 55%, 56.7%. So it is a lot lower in ABV than the previous release that was 68 or 69%. And we did find a lot of bottle variants, not bottle variants, but the oxidization when you did open it up and you let it breathe and let it come to life in the glass. The actual particular barrels, they do change a lot and they change very fast. Like the summers we get up to 45 degrees and the winters we get -6, -7 degrees. So we've got these massive fluctuations in temperature, and we've got to be really careful that the barrel, how it's interacting with that. The barrel can actually just strip itself apart, and you can come back and it's just a bit of timber sitting there. Thank God we haven't had that happen yet, but they sit under a lot of pressure, and with barrel management, as everyone I think can attest to this, is really important, and you've got to always keep on top of that. So yes, it can get away from you, and especially with a maple syrup cask as well.
Yeah, and for those who haven't met him, here is the dreaded distiller. A photo taken at a previous oak barrel event. Thank you to May Lawrence, who was taking photos that night. But he's obviously the good-looking one of the team, Dean.
Well, so he keeps telling everyone. No, he's the hard-working one behind the scenes as well. When Bo first, Bo came up to me actually at football training one. We were playing football together, and he came up to me and he said, "I can't keep working as a concreter for my old man. One, I'm working for my old man, and two, it's concreting." He said, "What jobs have you got?" And I said, "I don't know. Do you know much about whiskey?" And he goes, "There's Johnny Walker Red." I thought, "Oh, geez, this is not going to go well for me." And I said, "Come round to my house after this and we'll try whiskey." Anyway, Sullivan's Cove had just won Best in the World, and I had 2 bottles of Sullivan's Cove, and I poured him the first one. He goes, "Oh, this is disgusting." Well, I guess we're just going to have to drink a lot more whiskey. And since then, that's probably a really poor example of what Bo is and what he does, but he's a very quiet, unassuming sort of person. You've got to literally poke him and prod him to get him to talk. But once he opens up and once he starts talking, he's got a great nose. He's got a great palate. He's been distilling for 6 years and he's 27. So it's, I'm not saying we're challenging the Lark family there, but Bo distilling when he's 21 regularly, it's great to have that youth and exuberance on our side. And I think the maple syrup cask is something that we can sort of play around with. We've got time on our side where we're happy to throw caution to the wind. We're not worried about, we have to get this whiskey out in 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. We've got time. We're happy to run the course. If something stuffs up and something works, we'll figure something out later on. We'll give it to our chef and he can cook with. I don't know. We'll sort that out when the time comes.
Dean, I think we've figured out the issue is. Thank you for putting headphones in and getting them charged. But you just need to get a little bit of clean out that microphone, whatever you've got, because it is horrific, your audio at the moment. So, we'll figure that out. We'll all chip in and buy you a mic. But I want to throw to the panel here, and particularly I might start with Nick Baxter. Knowing Archie Rose have known to experiment with various things, and we'll get into an Archie Rose in a little bit. But maple cask, what do you think?
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, I have to say I've never tried anything kind of quite like this, particularly kind of maple syrup. I mean, I did know that they do aged maple syrup in cask, but I didn't know that anyone put whiskey into the cask subsequently. It's pretty cool. I mean, you get like tons of for me, like kind of raisins and sultanas right on the end that are kind of brought about by the maple. It's pretty insane that it's 57%. I mean, is that what you're going to be bottling that at, Dean?
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. It's really interesting. A lot of fun, right?
Chantal, how do you feel about maple cask whiskey from what is essentially neighbours of you? They might be just across the border, but they're not that far from you.
No, definitely. I think what Nick said. I mean, it's crazy the percentage of it. I mean, you could just drink that for breakfast.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It wasn't as sweet either as you. It smells so incredibly sweet, but it doesn't taste that sweet. That's amazing. I've run out of it though. Naomi came and nicked some. Sorry, I'm done.
I think that's the true judge. I mean, we were talking about this last night with some crazy casks. Does it still taste like whiskey? And that is sometimes the problem with these things is they don't taste like whiskey. This is still whiskey. Like it still tastes and feels and gives you all the aromas of whiskey. So I think that's worse. And I look, going to echo some sentiments I said to some other distillers tonight. In that, it has been such a joy to watch Corowa, which is such a distillery of its time and place. Using that local barley from where you are in the country. And if you're not familiar with the Riverina Murray region, it is such it's a big bloody big region, but it is such a we create so much there in terms of grain and cattle and fruit and all sorts of different things. To see distilleries sort of embrace that and make it, I don't think you can make, even though you were talking about you learnt very heavily at Killara, one of the greatest Scottish distilleries in my opinion, and one of the greatest ticks on your resume you could ever get. You can't make Corowa whiskey anywhere else in Australia, let alone anywhere else in the world. And I think that's a true testament to what you guys are doing. And the good-looking one, Bo, and the way he's come leaps and bounds in. And now I once you prod him and get him talking, I just shut up and listen to him these days.
He is. He's great to listen to.
Yeah, awesome. Well, look, I might throw to get Peter's opinion on this, because we're about to move into Peter's whiskey as well. So easy segue. Peter, you've done some pretty crazy stuff in your time. What do you think of maple cask whiskey?
Oh, lovely. Absolutely love it. Great. Fantastic. I said absolutely. I very rarely ever say that word, but no, I loved it. It's as far as whiskey goes, it's really pushing the limit for me to think it's still whiskey, but it's still there it's really, really delicious. Great. Love it. And Bo, look, you learnt from my cousin Robin Bignell from Killara.
I certainly did. Robin's a great guy.
Yeah, he's not my cousin really. He spells his name differently either. But anyway, it sounds the same.
There can't be that many Bignells out there though.
Yeah. Anyway, no, he's not my cousin at all. But anyway, yeah. But no, look, really, really like that. That's so different, and that's what I like about whiskies. There's so many different styles of them, and I think the Australians are pushing the boundaries. It's not Scotch at all. We're getting well away from that, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And it's Scotland. What do they ever do for us? Moving quite I see the viewers just drop off completely. we love Scotch whiskey, obviously, but we also love Australian whiskey. And what I think one of the great things about Australian whiskey is the best Australian whiskies that we've been lucky enough to try over the past 15, 20 years, and the ones we're seeing moving forward are not the Australian distilleries trying to make Australian version of Scotch whiskey or Australian versions of bourbon or Australian versions of Indian or Japanese or whatever it is, making the best Australian whiskey that you possibly can. Paul, we see it with your McWee, like using what's around you. Chantal, with like losing the environments. And I don't think there's anything truer than Peter Bignell and the Belgrove distillery. Physically building it from the ground, from the land that you were farming already, to build a distillery around it. And in this case, we're going to dive into Belgrove Peated whiskey, the 2020 release of Belgrove Peated, of something a little bit different. You are the king of making an Australian whiskey. I don't think anything tastes more Australian than what you make down in Belgrove.
Well, it's just my whiskey. That's, I guess, wherever I was in the world, I'd probably make something, a bit different from whatever everybody else does. And that's what I love doing, just being different. I guess there's probably some of you out there that watching that don't know about Belgrove, but I call it Belgrove because that's my farm. That's where I live. It's been its name for almost a couple of 100 years. I grow all the grains on the farm, and the only reason I got into making whiskey was that I had a crop of rye corn about 12 or 13 years ago, I think now, that I harvested all the grain and couldn't sell it. It was just a glut in the market because the season was really good. And I stuck with all this grain that I got all the trouble to grow and harvest. And I thought, damn it, what can I do with it? I know, I'll build a whiskey distillery. So in the corner of the little stables here, I built a whiskey distillery and started making it. So I've been going just a bit over 11 years now. I just like to do things differently. I get bored very easily. I'm quite creative. I've got an agricultural science degree, so art and science, I mix the two together. And a bit of my art. There's a guy I know from Yakandanda, Ben, that I did some ice sculpting with over the years, and we actually went to Russia and did ice sculpting in international competition, won one of the prizes there. But so that's my attachment to Yakandanda.
Sorry. Very quickly, can I just put that in perspective? Peter Bignell from about 2 hours north of Hobart in Tasmania, and some bloke from Yakandanda went to Russia for an ice sculpting competition and won.
Not the big prize. We won one of the prizes. Yes.
Yeah, but it's like didn't lose is enough for medals in that situation. But I want to put that in perspective.
Yeah, it's funny. I'd only been talking to Ben for about 20 minutes. He said, "Oh, do you want to come to Russia with me? In an ice carving competition?"
That sounds like Ben.
Ben drove through the service station in Yakandanda the other day with a giant dragon head on the back of a trailer. It was about 5 meters tall, and someone goes, "Whose was that? Who the hell is that?" And someone just goes, "Ben Gilbert."
Ben Gilbert.
Oh yeah.
There he is.
Yeah. There's Peter
Anyway.
with the dragon sand sculpture.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, right.
You less grey hairs there, Peter.
Anyway, it's just the creativity, and I just don't like following recipes. I make up my own recipes. Probably a lot of what I do is a lot more like Irish whiskey. I've got quite a following in Ireland now. In fact, I've got quite a lot of whiskey on a boat on the way to Ireland at the moment. So I do grain whiskies. I don't do very much malt whiskey at all. I do a little bit, but it's grain whiskey. About 80% of the grain is not malted. Only malt about 20% of it. And probably you've been here, some of you, and seen my malting machine. It's an old clothes dryer that I malt on my grain in. And then we smoke it in there as well. So the smoke in this whiskey that I got here, it's a rye whiskey. It's 100% rye grain, so 80% was unmalted, 20% malted, and the 20% was smoked in the old tumble dryer. The wet malt, after it's finished malting, it soaks up a lot of smoke. So it's not like post malting, a lot of dry malt that people try to smoke. They don't seem to be able to get a lot of smoke into it, although. In a few weeks' time, I think with Scotty, we're going to do another one called the Pete's. I was calling it Pete's Dragon. It's now called Bogan Burnout, which is very, very peated. But that's another story. But this one's reasonably lightly peated. It's a mixture of two different barrels. One of the barrels I thought was a little bit too like the Bogan Burnout. It was a bit too heavily peated, so I diluted it back with another barrel that wasn't peated at all, and just fiddle with it until I got it to a nice balance where I thought that probably more the general public, not the peat heads, just the general public would quite like it. But just a little bit more about the distillery. I'm very gradually been expanding ever since I started, and the part I'm in here now is another shed that was built in 1871. It's a much bigger room where I'm going to have a still in here, or two stills in here, and it's all going to get concentrated here and actually move out of the old stables. Unfortunately, WorkSafe have got on to me and said I can't use the old stables for barrel storage or pretty well anything anymore. So I'm going to get kicked out of there. So we're changing a fair bit. That I do oat whiskey and rye whiskey, the two main things, and started doing quite a bit of single grain whiskey with barley as well, and that's really interesting. It's not a malt whiskey because a lot of the grain is not malted, and beautiful, sweet new make it is. So I'm going to be very interested when that comes online and it's matured enough. But getting back to this one. But this one I cut the smoke back a fair bit just by diluting it. I do a lot of barrel blending. We don't actually release very many single barrels. We get, every now and again we get a cracker that we release on its own, but most of them we blend several barrels together. not so much for consistency, but for balance. Because I use a lot of weird barrels. Don't use any port and sherry barrels. I think I might have one port barrel in the whole distillery that's got oak whiskey in it. I've got a few weird barrels, like I've got an orange sour beer barrel that's got oak whiskey in it at the moment, maturing, a peach sour that's got a rye in it. I've got a Bundy rum barrel, quite a few stout barrels from my son's T-Bone Brewing. I lend him barrels. He ages his stout in them. I get them back again. Pinot barrels, quite a few Tim Duckett's Heartwood barrels. They actually go really, really well with my rye, the Heartwood barrels. I can extract a lot more flavour out of his whiskey barrels and into mine. I thought this one I cut to 50%, which I thought was where it sort of worked pretty well.
But Peter, you're saying this is lightly peated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because, I think this like, if anyone's wondering what the Bogan Burnout tastes like, it's about 10 times of this. This is Peter's version of a lightly peated whiskey. And this for me is flavour. It's huge.
Is this Peter? Is it peat you're using, or is it something else? Like it almost has got a wood kind of feel to it, like wood smoke. Yeah,
it's peat from up the northeast coast. On my brother's farm, he's got a peat bog right behind his house, and so the main, I imagine over the years, the main organic matter in there would be tea tree.
Yeah,
okay. New Zealanders call it manuka, so it's manuka smoke.
Yeah, it's a really different peat. It's like I said, it's more woody kind of, not fire, but it's a different sort of peat.
Oh, very, very different. Yes.
It's certainly not subtle.
No.
And I think like people who might like this might be a lightly peated Belgrove. On the scale of whiskey in general, it's not on the it's not on the subtle end of peat in whiskey in general, which is what I think is great. And we will do something with Bogan Burnout, Peter, as you say, when Ozpost decide to deliver those bottles to me. But you know, I think it's a testament to your experimentation. I think like this is great. Like this is. I remember when we used to have tourists here at the Oak Barrel, and we're, for those who don't know, we're CBD Sydney. We're just on Hyde Park, and so therefore there's a lot of apartments and hotels around us. And we would get like people going back, particularly from America, and seeing the words peated and rye together and having no idea what we were talking about, and just taking, I think the Oak Barrel's exported more bottles of peated rye from the first batch than we kept in Australia. It's just not something that is done. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I love my peat. Yeah, probably the reason I love my peat is that, same with a lot of other people, the first whiskey that I tried many, many years ago that I suddenly thought, wow, I love whiskey, was a Lake of Ullin. And ever since then, I just love peaty whiskies. I drink a few for a while and then you sort of get a little bit sick of them and just go on to unpeated, and then just keep coming back to them. And so just every now and again, I make a peated whiskey, and every now and again I like to soup it up a little bit more. But this one, the single barrel of it was, I thought it was just a bit over the top for a lot of people. Maybe I should have released it as a single barrel, but I cut it back a fair bit. And it's actually at one stage there, I thought, oh dear, I've cut it back a bit too much, and I haven't got any extra peat to add back to it again. But by the sound of it from comments there, there's enough there. It'll do.
Peter, you can never know how much joy it just brought me for you to say the sentence "soup it up" from someone who grew up in Western Sydney, when every car, if it wasn't souped up, it wasn't worth driving. For you to describe a whiskey like that, I think that was unbelievable. And so I'm going to throw the other distillers under the bus. It's going to be a show of hands. Who's playing with peat or peated malt? Nick, you don't need to put your hand up because Dan already threw you under the bus last night. That Archie Rose is playing with some peated malt. But Stuart, you said you were. So who's playing with a bit of peated malt? Not peated cask as such, but peated malt. Yeah. So yep, pretty much everyone apart from Paul and Backwoods. So that's
we're doing smoked malts. We're using woods.
Okay. I'm very interested to see the Kinglake hand go up there, Chantel. That could be a very, very interesting little creation there. Is that?
Well, we
say as much or as little as you need to.
Yeah, that's all right. No, we put peat in our one. Obviously, like we try and keep the same recipe, but people keep saying to us to try and do a peated. So we don't know. It's not something we probably normally do, but anyway, we'll see how things go.
Yeah, excellent. And Paul, no peat in your malt makeup as far as I'm aware.
Not yet. One of the things I wanted to do initially, I didn't feel that I had enough experience with dealing with the yeasts and malts and so on. So I thought I'll get the basics right first, and then after 2 years, then I'll start experimenting. And peat was one thing I'd like to do. I'd originally thought about using peated malt from the UK, but I do have some peat from Tasmania, which I may play about with, that I picked up. So yeah, that'll be in the future, but nothing in the next couple of years.
Yeah, peat generally, just from the greenies, sort of takes a bit of a hit sometimes. That's unsustainable, the mining of peat, that it doesn't last. So actually I manufacture my own as well as digging that, from my brother's farm. I do actually manufacture my own. From my sheep, they help out quite well. So I feed the draft to the sheep, and then they shit it out as looks like peat. They dry it, and then we burn that. And actually, I think it's actually a nicer smoke than the peat. So it's not nearly as woody as Stuart was mentioning. But anybody might have seen the Gordon Ramsay show when he came here, and I had Gordon shoveling shit to burn to make some of the holy shit rye whiskey, which is not ready yet. The original batch sold out a long time ago, but it won't be that long before we'll have another manufactured peat rye whiskey.
Can I just say on that, Peter, since that Gordon Ramsay TV show has come out in America, we've taken phone calls from Americans who are looking to grab it. Everyone too polite to say the word shit. Do you have the Peter Bignell sheep whiskey? It's sheep dung whiskey or something. Yeah, mate. No, not for another couple of years. You're right, love. Off you go. But we have a little thing on the Oak Barrel website. When something sells out, you put your email in and you get alerted to it. We have about 1,000 people wait, because we had the previous one. About 1,000 people waiting for the next release, which is it's really going to stuff them up when I create a new product and be like, the 2022 or 2023 release, and none of them are going to get the notification when it comes back into stock. But we'll work that out.
Yeah, I've got quite a list of Americans who want it as well, and they don't like saying shit either. So, rather amusing, yes.
Well, let's on the concept of blasphemy. Thank you very much, Peter, for that insight. And we're going to we've been talking about it a little while. We're going to do a Belgrove specific tasting like this in about a month's time or so, with some new excitement. But it's time to get into dessert, I think, which is the Archie Blasphemy. And we're going to like to introduce Nick Baxter again to the stream, who's been watching very, very enviously, watching all these other distilleries present whiskey, because that's something that the biggest distillery in Australia doesn't have too much of at the moment.
This is true, Scotty. Yes, we, like many others, are struggling a little bit to keep up with demand for some of our whiskey products, for sure. I guess I should introduce myself first for those who don't know me. My name is Nick Baxter. I look after the advocacy side of things for Archie Rose. So I was an ambassador down in Melbourne for about 4 years. Made the move to Sydney just in time for COVID. So this is my second Oak Barrel Whisky Fair, viewed virtually rather than in person. So bad timing on that front. But yeah, Archie Rose, for those that don't know, is a distillery based here in Sydney, only 5 km from the city centre, and even less than that from the airport, actually, which and my house where I'm sitting now is about 100 metres actually from the Archie Rose bar and cellar door here in Rosebery. And normally we hear a lot of aeroplanes going overhead, outside of COVID times, but it's been very, very quiet the last few years.
Is it true for someone who's spent a bit of time overseas, you just wanted to live out the castle and live as close to the airport as possible?
Yeah, this is it, right? It's the Australian dream to have the house really close to the airport. With the airplanes flying overhead. But no, I moved to Sydney at the start of last year, and I mean, Archie Rose's story, like most of the guys in the chat tonight, is not not one that goes back, decades. We're only, 7 years old this year, founded in 2014, making a whole range of different spirits. I think some of the guys here as well are making some other spirits as well as whiskey. I think quite well known for some of our gin and vodka and some of our other spirits. The bar here is next level. If you haven't been to the bar or the cellar door, you should definitely check it out once we're all on the other side of this, maybe in 2022. We started making whiskey right from the get-go as well. I'm sure a bunch of these guys have met Will Edwards, the founder, who was a pretty young bloke when he started up Archie Rose back in 2015. I know he spent a bit of time down in Tassie, speaking to Bill Lark and certainly Peter Bigner as well when he was setting up Archie Rose. And we laid down spirit into cask in early 2015. Our first cask I think we laid down in February of that year, making two I think quite distinct styles kind of in our core range. Single malt whiskey and rye malt whiskey as well. They're the two I guess you're alluding to, Scotty, which are pretty hard to come by. Certainly that has been a challenge, keeping up with demand for those two in particular. I believe we're making some pretty good juice. I'm pretty proud of what we've done over the last 6 or 7 years. And we certainly love to do some different things as well, right? Like I think sometimes, particularly with whiskey, that kind of like it's kind of a little bit snobby sometimes, and I think like a lot of the fun sometimes is lost. And I think at the end of the day, most of us drink because it's good fun, right? Like most of us sell spirits or want to have a beer or whatever because it's like a social convivial thing, and I think we definitely live those values. We like to do, I think, some kind of innovative things. This particular bottle was released last month. It's been something that I guess has been in the works for a fair while, and it's something that now we're having to talk about and I guess explain to people when people taste it, and it's not full of sugar. And like kind of knocking you over with an absolute ton of coffee. I think it's a pretty delicate balance in terms of this spirit. I think it is quite whiskey forward. I mean, I'm gonna have a taste right now. Wet my whistle. I think it is certainly whiskey forward. It's using our single malt whiskey. And a blend of two different coffees from the good guys at St. Ali in Melbourne. Absolute legends down there. I think a really well-known coffee brand who again have been really pushing the envelope in coffee, and they've been around actually probably longer than all of us have been around as distilleries. They've been around for almost 20 years, I think, in Melbourne, maybe 16 or 17 years. And we thought, what better combination than whiskey and coffee? I mean, they share so many parallels in so many ways in terms of flavor profiles, and we thought they would go really, really well together. And whilst I think a lot of spirit and coffee products really kind of go down that route of maybe a coffee liqueur, maybe adding sugar. Making quite a sweet product, or making something that maybe the spirit is kind of in the background. I think this is kind of very much the opposite. It's showing off the different malts that we use in our single malt whiskey, and I think marrying that really well with the flavors from the two different coffees that we use from St. Ali.
And this is whiskey that instead of being brought down just by water is being brought down from cask strength, whatever that might be, to the 40% it is, with a water and and coffee mixture. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? So to get this down, this is actually the lowest ABV spirit we're trying tonight, which is kind of weird, being the last one to talk about it. This is 40%, and yes, we basically take our single malt whiskey, and break it down to that bottling strength. I mean, it makes it sound pretty easy when I say it like that, but I believe that there was many trials to get the balance right between the coffee and the whiskey. I guess there's a lot of factors, right? When you've got two different coffees, the amount of coffee you're using to water even, let alone then mixing that with whiskey. So it's quite a complex process to get that flavor profile kind of where we want it and where it's going to have, the right type of stability in bottle as well. But I think they've done an amazing job, the blenders.
So who on the panel here is a big coffee drinker? Because I have to admit I'm not.
I like coffee.
So almost universal hands, apart from Christy and myself, who don't. Christy, no coffee?
Not a huge amount, no.
Yeah, no, me either. So we'll recurse ourselves from this. But for the coffee drinkers amongst us, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's yummy.
Yeah,
With whiskey and then a coffee finisher. Perfect.
Yeah, what do you call it? Because it's weird, because you can put the whiskey in a coffee barrel and call it single malt, but if you put coffee in the whiskey, what do you actually call it?
Well, that's why we call it Blasphemy, Stuart. But that's exactly it. I think it is a difficult thing. I mean, I think there's a few guys. I mean, we did something with Kaiju a few years ago where we distilled one of their India black ales, like 10.5% India black ales, and distilled that and aged it, and eventually over 2 years, but obviously not legally allowed to be called whiskey either, right? Because we're distilling a beer with hops in it, But I think it's I mean, we do obviously call it Blasphemy. You can call it Blasphemy coffee whiskey. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's a great blend of coffee and whiskey. I mean, we obviously talk about whiskey on the bottle. I think it does sometimes maybe take a bit of explaining, but I think it's a bit of fun. It's the type of spirit and the type of whiskey which I think is becoming more common in Australia, where there's spirits that you can really work well mixed. It's at that price point, kind of $89, where you can still kind of drink it maybe if you wanted to with a mixer. I mean, some people think drinking, a really good single malt with mixers blasphemy in itself. I mean, I know there's a pretty well-known Facebook group called Whiskey Blasphemy, which I do love to see some of the posts on there and see what people are drinking with some pretty crazy expensive whiskies. But yeah, this goes so well in things like, Boulevardier, like a twist on a Negroni with Campari and sweet vermouth. That's I would say Negroni is probably one of my go-to drinks anyway, with a bit of gin. But I think a Boulevardier with this and Campari and sweet vermouth is an absolute banger. So that's what I'd recommend people to try.
Yeah. Look, Nick, excellent dessert. Thank you very much for that. I was about to say I asked everyone for an hour and a half tonight, and you've all given about 2 hours and 10 minutes. But actually, now that I think about it, I didn't ask you. I didn't put a time limit on it. So you're all idiots for just agreeing to an open-ended time frame to this. But this has been so much fun. Before I let you guys go, I'm going to do a quick round the grounds, and I'm going to pick on you, Nick, because you're up the top there. I want quick fire. What's happening with Archie Rose? What we can expect in the next couple of months, and then out of the stuff we've tried tonight, something that really blew your mind or changed the way you thought, or something special you tried tonight. So bring it up on the big screen, Nick. What's coming up from what can we expect in the next couple of months, and then something cool you tried tonight.
Has to be whiskey related, I guess, right? For this, I mean, there's not much.
No, not at all. You could do the bone dry gin, which I tried tonight, which is bloody genius.
Boom! Bone dry gin. I mean, first new product coming out of our brand new distillery in Banksmeadow. It's pretty bloody exciting, I have to say. Juniper distilled 3 ways. I mean, it's an absolute flavor bomb. So I think using the new kit we've got, the new stills we've got down there, that's really, really exciting. We've got a new harvest release coming out towards the end of the year, which is not whiskey. And then we may well have one at the start of the year that is whiskey, which is pretty cool. So a few fun new things to think about. Yeah, like I think we're always doing some new stuff, I think. So we've always got some new products kind of, about to hit, especially working across so many categories. So that's what I guess makes it so fun to keep working at Archie Rose. In terms of tonight, oh goodness, I think there was a couple that really stuck out that I really loved. I mean, I have to say big shout out to the Backwoods guys. I tried their whiskey for the first time actually at Voyager out of Witten Malt House at the end of last year for the first time, and I really loved the single malt tonight. And I think the other two were the 2Ks, the Killara and the Kinglake. I think they were smashing, both like quite different, but whiskies that really, I guess, appealed to my palate. And yeah, exciting to see so much diversity. I think in Australian whiskey in such a short space of time.
Beauty. Thanks, Nick. All right, I'm going to bring Paul up now, mate. What can we expect in the next couple of months, and a couple of whiskies or one particularly that you really love tonight?
Yeah, I guess in the next few months we're looking at doing single casks, cask strength, and we've got a few things in the background. We've got some rum casks, Beanley rum casks. We've also got some champagne casks, Jantz champagne from Tassie, which are maturing extremely nice, but that may be a few more months. In terms of whiskies tonight, look, I'm just amazed that every one of them was really good. There's not one whiskey tonight that I wouldn't not buy, and it's fascinating to see the different flavors, whether it's coffee or maple syrup. But I'm just stunned by the quality of the whiskey and some of the flavors I'm getting and the nuances. It's just amazing. I can't pick one out really. They're all great. So.
Awesome. And congratulations then on everything you're doing. We might bring in Darth Vader from the Sydney Swan Supporters Club here tonight. Mate, do you have a pick tonight?
I reckon my pick would have to be Killara. It's been I tried some of Killara's early stuff, and to try that one tonight was absolutely fantastic. So just Scott, why did you change my name on there? It was. I love that Killara whiskey tonight. It was just. It had real life and soul in it, and it was so just beautiful and showed the distillery off there. So I was really impressed by that.
I'm blushing now.
So you should.
Great juice.
Great juice. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
I'll bring in the twins from Backwoods.
What have we got coming up?
We've got lots coming up.
Okay, you go.
Well, there's the batch 5 single malt. We've got red gum casks coming up. We've got smoked malt casks halfway through maturation. We've got what else?
We've got some tawny rye actually,
Tawny
which
rye.
we got out today, which is pretty yummy. And we've got an independent bottling going to the US, which we're very excited about. To think our whiskey's been drank in another country is pretty cool.
Yeah. We've got what was I going to say? Just forgotten.
No, she's forgotten.
I've not drunk this much in ages.
Yeah, but
and we've emptied all of our bottles.
we shared them though.
So delicious.
But I'm a bit like Paul. All it was really like everyone here tonight are sort of my favourite distilleries. You guys are what I drink all the time. So yeah, I'm mad on rye. So every time I get a Belgrove rye, I get very excited. So I love that. And yeah, Dino's Maple Cast is great. Love trying Paul's whiskey for the first time. It was amazing, and I just love that pear, that flavour that
I've never
Killara
had
going on.
that sort of pear note in a whiskey before. I love that.
And and finishing with the Archie Rose coffee is just it was all amazing. And and Chief Son too. That just to kick off the night was like roses to start with. It was like getting a bunch of flowers, and then away we went.
we might bring Stewie up then for the next. Thank you very much, guys. Stewie, I think your background keeps getting grander as the night goes on. But well done.
I know the old bagpipes over here. They look a bit very prestigious. They're 200 years old. They're Mackenzie pipes, but that's got nothing to do with tonight. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to sit on the fence
as a sending us off.
Oh, we have occasional parades around the house, but no one can play them well. So, I'm going to sit on the fence as well, but not about like sort of who's best, but I really love the Tria Prima for something really kind of new, unique and different. And of course, you know, you can't Corowa. So I love the uniqueness across the whole fleet we've had tonight. It's nothing the same. So that's super cool. Where are we going this year? We launched 2 weeks after launch. Everyone was saying, "What have you got that's new?" So I love this whole comment. but we've got lots of new coming on. Our core range is going to grow from 3 to 4. So that brings on a peated variety, and then it'll grow to 5 with the American oak. So it's that's really exciting. But as for the obscure different things, we've got loads of things happening. We've got our Distiller Select to come out soon, which is always the most unique and different whiskey. What we got? We got port coming online. So we got a lot happening, but we're trying to keep it consistent and high quality, and then have fun with the unique stuff.
Beauty, mate. Like, congratulations. And you're a veteran of this by now, so thank you very much for coming back and doing another one. Chantel, I'm going to drag you in now. A Grady's, I think, is a revelation. You know what's coming up, and you know what did you like, and most importantly, what did you really hate tonight out of what we tried?
Well, what's coming up? I hope I have a problem, as all you do, worrying about not having enough stock. We're not quite at that level yet, so that'll be a good problem for us, hopefully in the next couple of months. And what I like is, I'm a bit of a fence sitter. I like all of them, really. Again, I like all the different experimentations. The coffee, super interesting. We've never thought to do stuff like that. Greenlee, how you sort of took it out, watered it down, and put it back in. I've never thought about that, so no doubt I'll probably be calling you up asking more questions, as I normally do. But there's not one I don't like, so I could never say that. But it's been a good night. Thanks.
Excellent. I look forward to chatting to you after and see who you really hated, which would be good fun. I'll throw to Christy, who mate, a triumph again with your whiskey. And any particular reasons in the next couple of months leading up to Christmas we can expect through the Killara website, and any particular favourites tonight?
I've got a few things coming up. I've got my barrel-aged gin coming up, plus slow gin. In terms of whiskey, I've got a cask strength and a couple of smaller 20-litre casks coming up that are really exciting. A port rum cask is sensational. I'm pretty sure I don't want to sell any of that, and I just want to drink it all myself. And just the building as well, which is I'm so excited about the barrel bond store going up and the new building. And in terms of tonight, I think it's amazing and fantastic, and I'm probably a fence sitter as well, but that's because I just like the diversity that we've got here in Australia. And, you know, here tonight we've got 8 different expressions of whiskey, and we're all producing amazing different products, and there's so many more out there that people can go out and try as well.
No, beautiful. Thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're a genuine star, and as I say, in your own right, Killara is a bona fide powerhouse, potentially not in size, but in what they put out and what you guys create. And I now have a spot open. My one and only staff member has decided to move on to greener pastures, so I'm back to sweeping the floor again, unfortunately.
So Scotty might need to go there. Come on, Scotty, join the crew.
oakbarrel.com.au/jobs might be a bit of a launch here, because there's resumes to Christy at killara.com.au.
No.au.
No. Beauty. Well, so if it comes from this, I'm get a finder's fee. If it comes from the chat tonight, I get a finder's fee.
Okay.
Peter, mate, it's always a pleasure to chat to you. Your insight, and I dare say everyone in this panel and in this chat here has sort of learnt something from you, whether it's tonight or in the past. But, you know, what's coming up for Belgrove, and anything that you particularly that stood out for you tonight?
Yeah, coming up, there's so many things coming up because I've got so much experimenting, but I'm really doing a bit of concentrating on oat whiskey at the moment. So I've got oat batch 5 out at the moment, but there was still some left in the vat that I hadn't got round to bottling, and I decided to play around with diluting it a bit further. So I've actually got an oat batch 5.1. Cut it down from about 52.3, I think it was, down to 45. And I think that brings out the sweetness that ABV. Below that, it was a bit flat, but above that, still just a little bit spicy. But at 45, it really worked. So that's still sitting in the vat. I'm just waiting for it to flop to finish. So that'll be the next one out. The next holy shit's a little while off yet. But actually, talking about shit, wait on that side there.
As we are, obviously.
Yes, shit whiskey. Yeah, that machine there behind me is actually a belt press that was designed to take the shit out of sewerage, the solids out of sewerage, and came from South Australia. But that's basically my louder screen. It's a belt press. Yeah, the rye just does not run through a louder screen. And as for tonight, look, they're all lovely. I just love them all because they're all different. The one that really hit me, that really stood out, was the one from Corowa. Yeah, lovely. Just that maple syrup. It just loved it. Even though I'm not a great sweet tooth, but every now and again I just love a sweet, intense something or other, and that really did it for me tonight. And I think the whiskey that I thought was the best made one, which was really, really well balanced, was Christie's Killara one. But yeah, they're all fantastic. They're all great. And another thing I loved about Stuart's one, when I warmed it up, just couldn't believe that licorice note that came out of it. It's fantastic. I don't know why people put ice in their whiskey. They obviously love it that way, but gee, you should warm a whiskey up, I think. It brings out so many intriguing notes. And I just heated my glass up in some hot water and poured it in it, and the notes that came out of it was fantastic.
No,
but anyway,
brilliant.
I love them all. Right.
Yeah, and we are referring to Corowa as the Death Star moving forward. If anyone from Disney is listening, that's not a reference to any major or minor TV movie franchises you might own.
Dean's actually been smoking Winnie Blues. That's what they do in Corowa.
Look, I want to say a huge thank you to our panel tonight, and particularly to Paul and Chantal, who unfortunately couldn't make it to the Whisky Fair in person this year because we couldn't hold it. But at 2.5 hours, you're almost getting the Whisky Fair experience of standing on your feet and talking about whiskey for 3 hours in a row. So we're putting you through the ringer before you get to do it in person. Look, I really appreciate everyone's time and effort, and I'm not just talking about tonight. I'm talking about everything that you've done in the lead up in the past 5, 10, for some of you, 15, 20 years. I know it's not a small game, but we as whiskey drinkers get to reap the rewards of what you sow, and it's truly beautiful. And so I thank you so much for all your efforts, whether you are established or not. And apart from Archie Rose, obviously, who might actually come up with some whiskey at some point if we. If they get there, put their minds to it, you build the world's biggest still-standing whiskey. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But but it's
one day, Scotty, one day.
Yeah, beautiful. One day you'll have whiskey. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I think there's lots of love in the chat for you guys. Feel free for people in the panel. You can hang around when we go to tell each other what you really feel. But we might say goodnight to the people in the chat.
Just quickly, Scotty, back on you too, buddy. The support we get from the broader Australian whisky industry, not the producers, but distribution and retail, wholesale. You're the sort of guy that supports us, gets the message out. So, hat off to you. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, and mate, your determination to get us in front of your customers and whiskey drinkers, in these tough times, it's awesome, mate. So thank you so much.
Well done, mate.
Definitely.
And also, if I may just say very quickly, Oliver Maruda just there, he's been fantastic help with my independent bottling company, Remnant. And they're doing some great releases of stuff. We're sending them. We've got a couple more to send up to him. So I do a independent bottling of Remnant whiskies that I bought from some poor old investors that got a bit shafted, but anyway, thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, and just on that note, before we let everyone go, Oliver Maruda, good bloke, lovely person in the Australian whisky industry, Sydney cider, and also, far more importantly, firefighter, who went out, 18, 20 months ago. So hats off every time. You buy when you're in a bar with Ollie, you buy him a drink for the work he did when the world was imploding. And I do apologise again for getting up in February last year at the Spirits auction and saying thank fuck that's over. Everything's going to be easy from here on in. I do apologise.
So it's your fault, Scotty.
It's all my fault. I thought it was done. I thought it was over.
Cruise ships.
Yeah. Look, everyone on the Facebook on oakbarrel.com.au and the YouTube, we're going to say good night to you. We'll be back tomorrow night with Tim Duckett and his mate Bill Lark, if anyone's familiar with them. I just heard today that Bill Lark's actually got on holiday, and so he's going to be on the YouTube. Sorry, not the YouTube, on the iPad in his cabin. So that could go either way. We'll figure that out tomorrow. But such is life. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting us during these tough times, and we will be back bigger than ever in 2030 when Whisky Fair can return. We'll see you all tonight later.
Excellent.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.